can you make your own DIY OPAMPs? Well, today we're going to find out. I'm Hello Sailor Joe, and my co-host today is
John Mulholland, Space Wolf.
And I'm Simon from JSA Effects.
the wizard himself. Yes.
Yeah, I'd never go that far. Yeah.
Oh, mate, your last episode that you were on with us is just like blew up compared to the rest of them. It's insane.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I think I've said this before. I was a teacher for so long. I desperately miss teaching. So it's very much my happy place, just talking about stuff.
Mate, that's exactly why I started YouTube in the first place. Is I went from being on board where I was like instructing people every day, or they call it train your own relief. If you teach someone to do something, you never have to do anything again. You know what I mean? And then I left that job, and I was like, well, what do I do with all this? I don't know.
Yeah, with the desire to do it.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, I find that I learn as much teaching as I do from like taking a class as well. So
100%, mate.
Yeah,
exactly, 100%.
I was saying this to someone the other day, and it's a weird one. The expression "fuck around and find out" has become quite a negative thing. And when I was a teacher, it wasn't. That was the kind of, well, not necessarily our ethos, because they were teenagers and swearing was frowned upon. But that was the whole point. You played around, like when you did studio stuff, you grabbed every mic you could, you just threw stuff on, and yeah, I feel like that's an important part of just learning, really.
It's why I like Josh Scott's motto: "Just try stuff."
Yeah,
I mean, if you don't try stuff, you'll never find out, man.
Yeah,
he's doing so well. His live stuff and that the mods are amazing.
Oh yeah,
I can't get enough of it. Yeah.
Total nerd fest. I love the fact that he's just unabashed, like not trying to appeal to a mass audience. It's like you're there because you like this stuff, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be like dressed up and like flashy graphics and all this other stuff. It's like, just him hanging out with other people that have similar interests, and it's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
I love it. I wish it had been there 20 years ago when I was really first getting into this. So
yeah,
exactly. Some usual faces on: Hubcap John and Mike Rivers.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Two awesome pedal builders while we're there on the subject.
I know a few other people told me they're going to be on board here later on too. So,
okay, I wonder if one of them's going to remember that one on YouTube.
I don't know, man. I might have his head swimming in conspiracies right now.
That's class.
Yeah, I think he took like something I said a little too literally, and I went down the rabbit hole with him. And I don't know where he thinks this has gone, but I'm like, dude, I was just saying like, hey, somebody said something, and it's like things might get interesting. He's like, what? It's like,
he's probably never come back from that. I was speaking to him yesterday, actually. What a guy.
Hey, if you're out there, Warren, it's all in good fun, mate.
He's got the biggest pedal collection that you've ever seen. We got some bike builders here. We got
yay, Marcus.
Marcus is on. Loving the Monday Minute, mate. It's literally my favorite thing about Monday. He's got a 1959 Strat. End of story. Mic drop. He wins.
Yeah, nice. He beats my 63. My 63 is my 63 is only a body anyway, so it doesn't even count.
Have you ever seen Trigger's broom? Is that a thing out in the air? So it's the same broom. It's had 5 new heads and 12 new handles or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Love it. Right, so the subject today is one that I'm massively interested in. It's all about making op amps out of discrete FETs or transistors.
Yeah, discrete parts.
It's insane.
Well, I apologize now because I'm just going to rant and ramble. But it's going to start with this because this is important. This is my 1998 Boss Blue Driver BD2 that I bought as a brand new in 1998 from Guitar Mania in Bournemouth, which is still there. I'm quite surprised it's still there. It was weird as well because when I went into the shop and they asked I wanted a distortion pedal, I explained that I liked like grunge and metal, and somehow they suggested the Boss BD2 rather than like a Big Muff or anything. Yeah. But I'm glad they did because it then became like my main drive for years. It's basically one of 2 pedals that I've never sold or pawned or anything like that, and Dan Electro Dan Echo. Even at like my skin test, those kind of just stayed on the shelf. So when I started building pedals, because it had been my main drive for so long, this charming little lad, still in this little blue box as well. That's how you know it's good era Boss, when it's got the proper coloured boxes. I started building pedals, and I had some gripes with the BD2. One of them is the buffered bypass. Like everyone talks about tone suck and stuff through Boss pedals, and there is something particularly bad, in my opinion, about the BD2 buffer bypass, which I'll come to later. It turns out it's a whole thing. But the buffered bypass, the medium gain stuff. So with the gain really low and it's kind of not clipping, it sounds great. And with the gain quite high, where it's loads of clipping, it sounds great. But between those, I find it really fizzy and kind of it clips really unnaturally, in my opinion. I've completely forgotten my third thing. But those two were kind of big gripes. Oh, touch sensitivity. Yeah, touch sensitivity and things. So,
the attack.
Yeah, it felt quite unnatural. So when I started building pedals, I wanted to build something to replace it and retire it. I mean, it's 98, so nearly 30 years, 26 years, let's say.
I was literally playing with Action Men in the street then.
I mean, what do you mean, Simon? It was just last week when those were for sale at the store I worked at. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that. I'm too old now. Oh my God, 98. What?
Yeah.
To be fair, come on. I was like 12 years old. Come on. I was 14, and I think it was mostly I'd got past that stage of playing football in the park and decided that playing guitar was how I was going to get laid. But yeah, so
exactly.
It worked out really well, actually. I've had my partner for 20 years, and that was because of guitar.
Oh, man.
Thanks. Turns out I'm all right at playing guitar. Not great. I mean, to be fair, you don't need to be able to play great to get ladies or people to find you attractive. Anyway, so BD2, great pedal, loved it, had gripes with it, wanted to build something that could do what it did, but with those improvements. So I just started messing about, and obviously, when you first if you Google the Boss BD2 schematic, it's terrifying. It's huge. And obviously, at the time, I was doing that thing where you Google like whatever the pedal you want is and then variable layout. And I think there is a variable layout, but it's massive. It's like it would fit in like a 1590 double B, and it's crammed. And I couldn't understand why it was so crammed. So I tried loads of things. I built things like blues breakers, tube screamers, loads of like the standard drives, and found things that were interesting, but none quite captured what the BD2 did. And it wasn't until we went for, in fact, this time of year, we have a Christmas meal with a bunch of our friends every year. And we were outside. It was when I was smoking, because smoking's cool and I desperately miss it. But we've gone outside for a cigarette. We got outside for a cigarette with my two pedal gurus. And I was chatting. I was saying how frustrated I was that I couldn't get that BD2 sound. And one of my pedal gurus just casually mentioned, he goes, "Oh, well, it's discrete op-amp." And I just stared blankly, and I went, "I have no idea what you just said." And he's like, "Oh, it's an op-amp stage, but it's built using discrete transistors rather than the microchips." And as soon as I got home, full of Sunday roast, I found the schematic, tried to make sense of it. And then once you start breaking things down and you start seeing what is an op-amp and what these things are doing, it becomes much easier. And as soon as I built my first kind of standalone single discrete op-amp, I knew that was it. I knew I was going to do something with it. And it turns out I'm looking. So basically, I've gone around my room and found what I've got. This discrete op-amp, and it turns out it's loads, because it turns out I lean on it quite heavily. But yeah, it's brilliant, and it's something different. It's a kind of roll your own mentality, which creates it's not necessarily unique. There's loads of pedals that do it. But it's a very open sound, really responsive to playing dynamics, not loads of parts. Yeah, it's wonderful. So when John, we were chatting a month or so ago, we were talking about what I'd been building recently. And I was like, actually, the stuff that I'm kind of doing is production. I have to do that. But like the PCB stuff, most of that's discrete op-amp. So I figured it was something worth talking about, because every time I say discrete op amp, people always question me like, "What do you mean?" So we all know
Yes.
what.
You don't mean a conservative op amp that doesn't want to upset anyone.
Well, no. I figured it's one of those op amps that won't tell everyone else what you did to it at the club. You know, it's like you can put anything you want through that thing, and it'll never tell.
You can tell it's all your deepest hopes and fears, and it won't tell anyone. But again, where's my camera?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So we all know what these things are. These little black microchip looking jobbies. These are called integrated circuits, or ICs. And it's called that because sandwiched between the kind of terrible lack of zooming, but sandwiched between is 2 bits of plastic, and sandwiched between is like a whole circuit. So it's not just a couple of components, it's like these fully fleshed out circuits inside there. And at some point, I think in the 70s, possibly 60s, but at some point that he realized they could shrink these circuits down and build them with robots, with microscopic components, and save a lot of space. Because op amps or operational amplifiers, they're not new. They've been around. I think they've been around in transistor form for like 70 years, 78 years now. The original one is tube. I've completely forgotten the name of it, but it's a 2-tube op amp that every now and then late night Simon desperately wants to build, and I Google it and I get obsessed with it, and then I forget about it. But it's used for maths. It was part of a computer.
I've got a hard copy schematic for it in my tube amp service book. So
cool. Yeah, send me
if you want me to, I'll take a photo of it and send it to you through Messenger.
Late night Simon's going to build this again, isn't he?
Late night,
Whenever I can like feed the science, man, if I've got it in my collection and somebody wants to experiment with it, like, I mean, that's the thing. When am I going to have time to do everything that I could possibly do? I mean, I was like, yeah, I could do all this too, but man, if somebody else is interested, here, try this.
Yeah.
somebody needs to seriously hire me on as a consultant, because I've got about $1 million ideas that somebody with the drive and the finances to follow through with, and we could make a fortune. I'll just take a small percentage.
Are you pitching to Elon Musk that he makes a range of guitar pedals? Because I feel like he'd be up for it, like X pedals.
Trump's made some guitars, so we might as well.
Oh yeah, yes. Trump guitars, Musk pedals.
Big picture. I'm thinking big picture, because my range of interest is broad.
Fair enough.
So yeah.
By the way, if anyone in the comments has any questions about these op amps or anything that Simon's saying, if you flash it up in the comment section, I'll put it on the screen, and then hopefully Simon can enlighten us all. There's no such thing as a stupid question, only an unasked question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, I want to say hi to Dave Berry and Carlos Pinto, Justin Drawbridge. He's in the chat too.
They're all in there.
Yeah.
Carlos actually runs Danger Electronics. If anyone follows him on Instagram.
Danger does great stuff.
He does. Yeah.
Epic, man.
It's frustrating because on my screen, I don't know if it's because it won't go full screen, but it's like I've just got a little picture. I'm just going to see if I can go full screen. No, I can't. So discrete op amps. Cable. So these little microchip things inside are full circuits, and as I said, operational amplifiers, they're not new. They've been around for years. Rupert Neve, that's a big thing in the Neve stuff, is his discrete op amps. And if you ever see them, in fact, so this is I'm going to fall over, isn't it? Yeah. This is a stack of PCBs. This is a stack of 50 PCBs. And it's about that size for a full discrete op amp, because it's about 20, 30 transistors and some other bits and pieces. Oh. So when you see them mixing desks, they're these kind of stacked blocks of PCBs like rammed together. So once people realize they can make them microscopic, it saved a ton of space, a ton of work, obviously drastically reduced the cost. And in the audio world, that became a big thing. Everyone wanted it, and it meant you can make smaller electronics. Now I have some, but they're not at hand, but like the SMD versions of them are even smaller. You know, like they're smaller than your fingernail kind of thing. So yeah, op amps are a big deal. And then at some point in, I think the 90s, yeah, it must be. But anyway, the fine folks at Boss tried to figure out or worked out how to make a functional op amp using minimal parts, basically. So, as I said, something like this. So this is a dual op amp, this particular one. So this is 2 full operational amplifiers in one case, which you're looking at like 60 transistors, and they are obviously made microscopic. And if you picture a circuit with 60 transistors, it very quickly gets out of hand. So Boss figured out a way of doing it with 3 transistors, and super simple. Have you got the picture, Joe?
Which one, mate? The smaller one?
Yeah, where it's just the 3 transistors, which like labels on it.
I most certainly have.
Cool.
2 seconds, and I shall bring it up on a screen, I hope. Yeah, but this is the sort of thing that's in that clone, is it? That you that you made for me, is that?
Well, that's it. So that was around that time. So I got home from the pub, the New Zealand Arms, actually. Not that anyone cares, but it's a great pub. Go to New Zealand Arms. But I got home, and the first thing I built was a tube screamer, which I sent you as well. And then the second thing, I don't know why my brain made that jump. My brain went, I've made a tube screamer using 2. Wouldn't it be cool to try and make a clon, which is massive and uses loads? So that was instantly, but yeah, that was instantly my jump, not from like gradually up. It went from tiny to as big as possible. So yeah, that Horse Whisperer is these kind of 3 transistor layouts, and it's become the core of a lot of my builds, actually. So most of my builds now are either discrete op amp or high voltage. There is stuff that isn't. There's stuff that's normal, but a lot of it is discrete op amps and high voltage stuff, which I also really recommend. It's really fun. I just see Joe's face searching for pictures.
Oh my god, it's not pictures, mate. It's trying to figure out how the
to share, yeah.
How to get it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Something I still haven't figured out. Or
yeah, it helps if you have the picture open. By the way, that's what it is.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. So this, So this is a very simple Boss style discrete op amp. Now I have to say Boss style because, as I say, there are people that make full discrete op amps, and when mixing desks and stuff say discrete op amp, they mean the full whack in these big blocks. I think it's Lauren Audio. I might be getting that wrong, but there's an American company that makes overdrives with full discrete op amps. There's another one. I've got it down there, but I can't remember what the brand is now. Italian brand, and their big thing was discrete op amps and transformers. And custom, wonderful stuff. It depends on how au fait you are with op amps, but let's assume you don't know what op amps are or how they work. The basic premise is you've got a non-inverting input, an inverting input, and an output. You've then got a voltage positive and a negative, but we'll come back to that. So the 3 main things: non-inverting input, inverting input, output. So an operational amplifier's job is to take the difference between the non-inverting input and inverting input and amplify the difference. Essentially a differential amplifier. And that's kind of what Boss have done here. So on the left with, is it Q1? Yeah, Q1. So Q1 is our non-inverting input. So with the guitar signal, it's only one thing, isn't it? So we've got the one signal that goes into the non-inverting input. That's then coming out of the drain, which is phase inverted. For those who don't know, if you build things like the Electra, Supardon, things where you're amplifying the signal and it's coming out of the I always say coming out of the top. Yeah. I know that's wrong, but yeah, it's the phase is 180 degrees out of phase, so it's inverted from the input. So output comes from the drain, goes into this PMP transistor to buffer it, and then I've not connected them here because that's in a different picture, but you would then create between that output point and the inverting input, that's where you do like your gain, like feedback resistor, smoothing caps, soft clipping diodes and stuff. So you're essentially feeding this non-inverting input through the output of this first transistor, which flips the phase, and then that's being fed back into the inverting input. But it will have resistors and things, so there will be a bigger difference between the inverting input and the non-inverting input, and this circuit then amplifies that difference. That's the basic premise of it. There's something in my head that I feel like it was an electronics tutor once said that an op-amp's main job is to try to match the output and the input. But that was also 20 years ago, and I don't really remember much. I remember him just talking about having a really smart hamster. Anytime we couldn't answer a question, he'd always say, "It's so simple, my hamster could do it." So, so yeah, these 3 transistors are the core of it, and then you've got three resistors as well, mostly for biasing. The charm of this circuit is, or one of the many charms of it, is other than its simplicity, there's no biasing, there's no external biasing. So with a lot of JFET circuits, you'd need a trim pot or something, and you'd bias the gate to be half the voltage. Which sounds, if you know what I'm talking about, that makes sense. But if you don't, it's boring anyway. You don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's what I ran into on the ones that I worked with. I had to put a trim pot in there just to make sure that I got the proper voltage for it to operate properly.
That's the other problem. JFETs are wildly inconsistent. And I mean, obviously, technology's come so far, you'd think they'd have cracked that, but they haven't. Even new ones are still, the spec are so different. So you don't need to externally bias it. It's biasing itself. They don't need to be perfectly matched transistors. That's a big thing as well, where if you have just normal differential amps, they have to be perfectly matched. There's stuff like the phase 90s as well, where they have to be perfectly matched. In this, as long as they're the same transistor type, so like J201 or something, 99% of the time it should bias and work absolutely fine. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it messes up when it's too different. But 99, I've built 104 hot toddies, and I've only had the problem once. So that's a kind of gauge of it. So yeah, that is the Boss style discrete op amp. And could you open the let's do the ample drive one, because it's easier. There's less stuff to it. Please.
Oh dear.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Ample drive, right? Where? What I should have done is before the show, I should have labelled up all of my pictures ready to go. But what I did do was just download them all, so they're all just long numbers and make it difficult for myself.
It's fine. There's only 3 or 4 pictures.
Well, that's more than I can count. I'll be taking my socks off to count them in a minute.
While show's finding that, then. So one of the things you'll see here is, so it's a pair of JFETs and a single PNP transistor. There are versions you can make with normal BJT transistors, which we'll talk about later, but for the most part, it's easier with JFETs. Perfect, thank you.
Is that because they're capable of giving you like the gain that you need to achieve a unity, or? No,
it seems to be to do with biasing, and it's to do with like the feed. I found that with the BJT ones, if you have anything larger than 100k in the feedback resistor, it kills it, and it just completely gates out and chokes. And I don't know why. And I've tried playing around with. I mean, it's 3 resistors to bias it, and I've tried playing around with all of them, and no, if it's over 100k, it really freaks out. So this was my ample drive circuit, which many years ago I built and I shared, and I think it's on my Instagram. You can build it if you want to. Essentially, it's a Zen drive, but without the output buffer. So, and the tone control is slightly different, but it's essentially a discrete op-amp Zen drive. And here, hopefully, you can see what I was talking about. So we've got on the left, that first JFET is the non-inverting input. The one next to it has the inverting input, and then the top right, we've got the BJT, which is the buffer, which is buffering the outer phase non-inverted input that's been amplified. Christ, that's a lot of words. But then it's this bit between the BJT and the inverting input. So it looks weird when you see it like this, because we're so used to seeing it with an op-amp symbol below it. But this is this is your feedback loop. So obviously there's a small capacitor, soft clipping diodes, your standard gain control, and a minimum gain resistor. And that's your when you see an op-amp circuit, that would be the bit between the output and the non-inverting input. And again, this bit next to it, the resistor and cap, going to VREF, is the gain filter. Again, it's nothing crazy. And once you think of it this way, and you can identify the inverting input, non-inverting input, and the output, hopefully, if you've built some very simple IC op-amp circuits, you can just apply the same thing to this. Do you want to try the Tube Screamer one? If you can find it. Cool.
I think I've got it down now. But handily on your original drawing, you've actually labeled up the pins. So if someone wanted to have a go at this, they could literally plug and play them pins into any op-amp circuit.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. Like you can figure out like which pin connection this would be coming from in the circuit. I noticed that. I was like, ooh, that gives me some ideas.
Well, that's it, because it is a very much this is essentially just like a single op-amp. So like a TL071, a 741, LM308 and stuff. So it's only using those 5 pins. It's using inverting input, non-inverting input, output, and then your plus and minus. So, and most of the time your V positive is 9 volt and your V negative is ground. So you can literally, for the most part, drop these straight in. There are exceptions. There are circuits where it doesn't work. There we go. But yeah, there are things where it won't work. But to be honest, experiment. You'll find it's easy to find the mistakes yourself and then go, okay, why doesn't that work? Or go, okay, it doesn't work and leave it, which is very much my mentality.
Yeah, well, I like finding things that don't work in funny ways and then figuring out how to tweak it so it's a sound that it's like might be something. It's like, ooh, that oscillates there. Can I control that oscillation so that I can keep it at that little warbly how many microfarads or picofarads or adjustment do I need to make? And that's what I found working with rewiring CMOS into a similar thing. Like you can turn a CMOS chip and you can find some areas where just some slight value differences, you can make some really cool sounds happen out of it. And I think it's untapped.
I don't want to alarm you. You can build a CMOS discrete op-amp.
Ooh, yeah. Out of this. That would be cool. Like a chipless llama.
Yeah. So it needs 2 P-channel MOSFETs and 1 N channel, which is a bit of a pain. It's not as simple. But yeah, I'll send you the link.
It's not as easy to find. Yeah, it's not as easy to find P-channel MOSFETs either.
No, but that's it. Someone did it. Someone did the discrete op-amp llama using MOSFETs, and it's great. It's great.
That sounds cool. I'll have to try that.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Right, so this is a Tube Screamer. It probably doesn't look like a Tube Screamer, but I assure you this is a Tube Screamer. There are some slight value changes. This is my simple Screamer, so things like the tone control are slightly different values. But again, hopefully this helps conceptualize it, so you could see this and then see a normal Tube Screamer and start to break down and go, right, this is your first op-amp, this is your second op-amp. Obviously, the one on the left, those 3 transistors makes up the clipping stage. You'll see things like there's a 4K. Again, I'm guessing because I can't see it because I'm squinty. But 4K7 and 47N resistor to VREF. That's your gain filter. Again, when you see a Tube Screamer gain stage, that's coming off of the inverting input. The soft clipping here, I've got it on a fancy diode switch because that's what cool kids do. But it is just, it's still just diodes, soft clipping. And again, putting it there, you can see that's your feedback loop and that's your soft clipping in that feedback loop. And obviously the small capacitor as well. You will notice, and I think it's on the amp drive. I think I left it in the stripped down one, but there's a tiny resistor. So it might be 47PF here. I assume it is between the emitter, between the collector and the base of that PMP transistor.
Capacitor there?
Yeah, tiny capacitor there.
Okay, yeah.
I think it says 47PF.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what it does. So
I think it can control oscillation usually, right? Or
that's why
I think that's what it's usually put in there for.
But it's a weird one. If you take it out, it still works absolutely fine. If you put it in, it's only audibly different once you kind of get above 100 PF. So I think it is meant for, as you say, like almost stability.
Is that one missing in the SRV Screamer? Is that the PF cap that's been clipped out?
No, that in the VR. No. So that little cap there between the collector and the base of the BJT is a standalone thing. It's nothing to do with kind of the cap. The cap you're thinking of is still there. It's that one across, like in parallel with the diodes. That's the one that gets clipped out.
I see that a lot of times in circuits that are based off of the fuzz space topology too. They'll use that on the input transistor, and I think it's a fail-safe to kind of control something.
Yeah,
and it's like it's to help smooth out any variables in the manufacturing process is what I was kind of led to believe, but I'm not sure if I'm 100% accurate on that.
The problem is, and that's the weird thing with this, that is what that 47 PF, or it might be 100, across the diode's doing. So that's the feedback capacitor that you would see between collector and base in like a fuzz face or an Electra, or the big muff is a great example, where you've got the 470 PF. So that's what that's doing. That's the kind of cutting the treble and stopping it oscillating there. But the second one, just across that BJT, I think is doing a similar job, but is either less audible or not audible, and is very much just I left when I built the very first one. I put it in, and I just left it. Worked, so I never took it out. Basically, I have played around with the value of it, and if there's a tonal difference, I can't hear it. But again, I leave it in because that's what Boss did, and who am I to argue with such an institution?
I feel they're not going to put components in that do nothing because it costs money.
Oh, they do all the time. They love it. So this is actually, whilst you say that, part of the story with this, the bypass is so bad because it's 3 buffers. So it's a buffer, the input and output buffer, which is not, that makes sense. Everyone does that. That's how all the Boss buffered bypasses work. You've got a buffer, and then it splits. Anyway, they've put another buffer in the bypass signal, possibly 2, but there's too many buffers, and they all end up, one, shaping the tone, but 2, the noticeable thing is if you're driving something into it, so you've got like a distortion or something before it, in bypass, it clips like crazy, and it's this really kind of honky mid kind of clipping that's just horrible. And if you jump the buffer in the bypass, it sounds way better.
Well, I think it's what happens when you get design by committee. Like you have engineering by committee, and everybody has their pet design, and they all 3 wanted to get their buffer design into the circuit to justify their position at Roland. And so
I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit of that, and it's a bit of making things bulletproof. Like, obviously, I get it.
Redundancy,
yeah. So Boss, there's so many things when you look at a Boss circuit, and you kind of think, do you really need that there? And then you'll stop, and there'll be one instance where if that wasn't there would be a problem. Like, it might work 99.99% of the time, but if only one person in the world has a problem with it, then you send the pedal back. So Boss would rather spend the extra half a p to put a capacitor somewhere in the hopes that they don't get returns. And everyone talks about Boss.
Yeah, that was a different time. Like they were in a different time and mentality in Japan industrially. Then they were not yet fully on board with planned obsolescence. They were still like make it last. They hadn't gotten on the bandwagon.
Warren's the chat. Way. Hello, mate. How's it going? Hope you're well. And also, we've got Mr. Budget Pedal Chapter Legend.
Cheers.
Runs possibly the best podcast going.
It's all right.
He makes good recommendations for sure for people on a budget.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Budge was in. I was thinking about Budget earlier because one of the pedals that was discrete OPAMP is one that he's demoed and quite likes. There's a couple actually, but so yes, this is a Tube Screamer. It doesn't look like a Tube Screamer, but if anybody wants this picture so that you can compare it to a Tube Screamer circuit, so you can kind of compare and contrast and see where bits are, just give me a shout, or give Joe or John a shout. They've got it as well. Yes, so that is the Boss Style Tube Screamer. And as I said, I don't want to say I've built a career off it. That's not true. I've built some pedals off it. But obviously the main one being the JSA Effect Hot Toddy, which again, cameras there. I took the back off this one. So as you can see, this is a whole circuit with there's no ICs in there. There's no integrated circuit / microchip things. It's all just transistors. And it's two of these Boss Style discrete op amps. It started life as a Timmy. Which is the single stage. And then I started adding the buffer and then the boost, and then wanted to see if I could do the full thing, and managed to essentially do a full Timmy with these two discrete op amps, which then led to further experimenting, and that's what the final version of the Hot Toddy is. Again, Budget Pedal Chap's got, I think, 2 or 3 different versions, because there's been a bunch over the years.
Don't ask me, Dunks.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can. You can use basically any. Again, it's an ASN channel, isn't it? JFETs. So I've built. In fact, the Horse Whisperer that Joe's got is 2N5457s for all the JFETs in there.
I'm really precious about that, if you can't tell.
I'm really fond of 5457s for a lot of the circuits that use JFETs. They kind of perform across a wide variety. Sometimes 201s in some of the circuits I put them in just give me horrible results, and other times they're exactly what you want. But the 5457 seem to be a really good all-around JFET just to have in stock.
It's just getting difficult to get them.
That was so part of my problem was, the J2, when it was during the pandemic, and then there was the big shutdown from China, wasn't there, and suddenly you couldn't get it. So they stopped. You can't buy new through-hole J201s. There's a lot of fakes and kind of clones out there, many of which are fine, but a lot that aren't. So they started doing the SMD version only, which is like MMBF. I wrote on one of these. Anyway, so you could get the SMD versions, but not the full one. So a lot of people made little adapter boards, like Fuzzdog make an adapter board. And
like 5 Cats pedals do
but loads of people do, because again, it's a very popular transistor. So during the pandemic, when all of a sudden you couldn't buy them, there was, I think, finally people either started experimenting or they stopped making JFET based pedals. So Wampler's a great example. There's a few big Wampler pedals which are like stacked JFETs, and all of a sudden they couldn't get hold of them. So that whole year, rather than releasing different drive pedals, they started releasing things like I don't think it was the Moxie, but those kind of like Ratbane and stuff like that, where they didn't need to worry about JFETs as much and could just build other things. And it was Sod's Law, actually. So the final version of the penultimate version of the Horse Whisperer I built, that I was really happy with, was around that time, and that used 7 J201s. And all of a sudden you couldn't get hold of them. So it was a nightmare. So I ended up with, which is my other production pedal, the Nightingale, which is like my take on the Blues Breaker, but using these discrete op amps. This uses J113s, which... That's what
I use in my Cosmos
as well too.
Yeah.
They're my favorite fets.
I've had some really good results with those in the what was it called? The Grace Overdrive and the Big Daddy Overdrive circuits that I've played around with, and also in some of the Noisy Cricket and Ruby type amplifier settings. The 113s sound really good.
That's what I use in all my my Ruby amps.
It's a weird one, because in my head it sounds daft when I say it's lighter than a 5547.
That's what
5457. Yeah, but it's when you use the term lighter in this sense, it's like it's dancing about architecture phrases. But it when you hear the two together, it makes sense. And so I tried them in the Hot Toddy. I ended up sticking with J201s or the SMD versions, and that because it was thicker and it gave the right kind of sound. But the Blues Breaker style thing with the J113s it's a totally different sound. It's difficult as well when you talk about discrete op amp pedals, especially with me, where they're both 4 knobs, they're both low gain overdrives. I've had a few people say, so is it just the same circuit and tweaked? And it's like, no, they are very different things. It's just at their heart, it's these Boss-style discrete op-amps.
What's the availability of the 5102 these days as a JFET? That's the thing that replaced the MPF 102. I've used those before.
No,
that might be something to look for. That because the 102 was the original JFET that everybody designed a lot of these circuits before you even had J111s, J112s, J201s. Like we had and then there was a B something before that. Like I've got some of the like the very first JFETs that I pulled out of a drawer that were ever made in my dad's collection. So I mean, I've kind of got a museum that I'm working out of here. So there might be things out there that we could like work with as substitutes, and I've got substitution guides as well. So maybe like if we start running into availability issues as pedal builders, we should like pull out the books and the knowledge and say, hey, let's look for these. Like if they're still manufacturing them through hole, like I would say is like is it a MPF 5102 or MP 5102 is the number?
Yeah,
I'm going to be googling this shit out of that after.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the frustration is, and I get it, and it's the same with tubes. Like when the Ukraine war kicked off, and suddenly everyone panicked about getting tubes from Russia because they're the only place still making. Yeah, because that was the only place making them, and because we're so so engulfed in this pedal and guitar world that to us their tubes are everywhere and they're vital. We forget that we're one of the very few industries left in the world that actually uses vacuum tubes.
Yeah, some of those makers wouldn't exist if it wasn't for our little hobby.
Exactly, and that's so. There's someone was I don't know how the rumor started that Mike Matthews of Harmonix was going to start like his own factory in America, and then there's another rumor Joe Bonamassa was going to do it. Both were like, no, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
they're not very clean to make, are they? It's not like an easy process.
Huge like amount of chemicals, and I mean, there's a reason why all those factories like closed down with EPA regulations. Like it was just too expensive for them to compete with what was being cranked out in developing nations.
And again, I think the specs is part of it as well. The amount of things you throw away, and I think that's the problem. That's kind of what happened with the fate of a lot of JFETs. Is as we were saying with trim pots and stuff, there's specs for even the same number are so varied that unless you're in a position to be able to do everything by hand and tune them all by hand, they're just not viable at all. If you were something mass production, making millions of the same thing, you don't want to pay someone to sit there and exactly tune each one. You just want to be able to use the same transistor and it work.
Plug and play, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially for mass manufacturing.
Yeah. So I get why. So again, I get why when pedal companies do it, they either do it as small runs or they bulk buy a batch of very particular transistors, and that's all they've got. Like the JHS Mini Bomb was one where again he just managed to get a bunch of the same spec, and so he could just use a resistor and not worry about it. And whilst not JFETs, the Death by Audio, the original Fuzz War, where he'd managed to get hold of this weird bunch of out of spec BJT transistors, and they worked perfectly in that fuzz war, but he ran out of them, and then because they were out of spec to start with, he couldn't buy more out of spec versions, so they had to totally change the circuit. So yeah, it's a weird world, and as I said, because we're so engulfed in it, we think that all these things are everywhere and everyone knows about them, and then you stop and go, actually we're a very small corner of this kind of industrialized world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and again, with the time, or a lot of people with the time to do it by hand as well.
So that kind of is a good segue for like an 800-pound gorilla in the room of the pedal building world. I'm seeing a lot of people online posting that they're having to suspend shipments to the EU indefinitely. What's going on? Like, is this like new like environmental regulation, ROHS type stuff?
The short version is, because it's a big story, and sorry, I don't mean to step in, but the short version is you need somebody who lives within the EU, so not Europe, within the EU as a trading.
I know it doesn't affect you guys because of Brexit.
No, it does. Yeah, we're fucked. It does?
Oh, really?
So,
because the Starmer like went ahead and joined back in?
No, because Brexit. Well, because we're out, we're not an EU nation, so we're the same as you. We'd need someone.
I thought
physically.
I thought you meant having stuff shipped to you. It doesn't affect you though.
From the stuff coming to us is fine. Stuff going out we can't do. So, but you physically need somebody within the EU with an address and a postcode and an email address, basically, who is your point of contact should something go wrong, or should they need. So yes, that part of it is there are more safety requirements. That was always going to happen. Like even if Brexit hadn't have happened, that would have happened to us. So if people are ROHS compliant or the CE stuff, there's loads more. So they've added more safety features. Mark from Soundlad Liverpool has done a wonderful. He did it a story, so you probably can't see it again. But he did this wonderful explanation of it, and all of that makes sense. But the difficult thing is, and this is why we can't do it. We can't ship, and the Americans just can't ship there. Is you physically need a representative within the EU.
So until you establish somebody as your point of contact, it's basically creating another middleman.
Yeah,
for the wheels to get greased to, so that your taxes are paid and your movements are tracked and everything goes along towards the WEO's WES plan.
Again, and I said Mark, a lot of what I'm saying was from what Mark had said. So it's from his understanding of it, and he's probably got a much better understanding of it because of his job and everything else. It's to discourage essentially Chinese stuff, mass-produced cheap Chinese stuff flooding Europe, which is unsafe, doesn't have the same safety regulations. So it makes sense why they've done it. It's because of these like very strict safety regulations that the EU have put on, which again all makes sense.
No, they want to import that cheap Chinese stuff, through their own channels instead of like having it flood in through the backdoor channels. Is why.
Well, no, not even flooding through the backdoor channels. They just want to be able to say if you bought something from China and it burnt your house down, or you got cancer from it, or it broke, the less extreme, it broke. The EU believe that there should be someone within the EU itself that they can contact directly and say, right, have you got the paperwork that shows your safety regulations, it's ROH compliance, it's CE compliance, all these things. And then that person in the EU, they've then got, I think, a week or something to contact you and say, have you got all this paperwork? I need it, basically. So
I see a real like cottage industry starting to form.
And that's the problem. Yeah, people are jumping at that.
People are jumping at becoming like your contact in Europe, and suddenly it's like, oh yeah, and I'll get right back to you, and they disappear.
Yeah, I think it was Alex from JSA Effects who was talking about it because he put together a group for people to kind of discuss it and try to figure things out. And he'd spoken to some of these companies that just suddenly appeared, and they wanted about $8,000. So $8,000 a year.
Oh no.
And it's frustrating because again, if you're someone like, well, this is the problem. So if you're
JHS, can we send birthday presents to the EU? That's for a question. Upcap John says, "What about sending a guitar pedal as a birthday present?"
Wrap it in some nice paper. He says.
So it's weird, and this might be interesting. Now, this might be a loophole for people like Joe and possibly Reeves and stuff. Antiques don't count in it, and in the same way, So it's in the same way that.
I can ship myself across the border, and
gladly if you can. But antiques don't count because they could, because they could never be ROHS compliant. So that's the thing. So you could, if you built something that was entirely vintage with vintage components that were probably full of carcinogens anyway, it's never going to be ROHS compliant. You just say, "This is my antique guitar pedal." Cool. Obviously, you can't do that with new pedal.
You heard it here first, folks. I'm the only pedal builder still shipping to the EU. Buy your antique pedal now.
I think the way it will end up, and hopefully, but I think what will happen is European builders will end up being points of contact. I think that's the hope. Is that there will be people. There are plenty of builders in Europe.
Well, there's a really good proponent in the EU in Czechoslovakia of like guitar pedals that are made in England and Canada and the US. His channel is Hard Clipping. He might be the guy because he is a really cool dude, and he's demoed your pedals from JSA Effects. He's demoed like a whole bunch of people's stuff. He gets stuff and he does these really cool fast demos where he plugs stuff in and twiddles the knobs. And
Czech in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Is the Czech Republic part of the EU? I asked that sincerely. I don't know.
I think it is, right?
I don't know. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah, I mean, it's like I thought they were.
They might be.
Closest not been is Montenegro to there
because of NATO and everything else too. Like,
but that's the thing. So like Sweden, Norway, they're not part of the EU, but obviously they're European countries. There's loads. Yeah, that's because again.
But this is the other thing. Says yes, it is.
Is it cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. If we end up joining the whatever the Scandinavian jobby is, the not EU outliers. If we join that, we're fine. We can go back about our business because suddenly we're within the trading demographic.
This is
but it's just because of Brexit.
Yanks over here. We unruly Yanks. You're going to turn your backs on us.
We've said it before, and I say it again. If you want us to rule you again, King Charles will be very happy. You know,
there's a harbor full of tea with the answer for that.
Warren says that he thinks the Czech Republic's a Russian bloc country. It was at one point, not always.
No, it's been. I think that's the other problem because I don't know how old the Czech Republic is either. I think it's only like 15 years old. Yeah, as you said, it was Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and then they were varying. Yeah.
I think it goes back to the 90s, like sometime in the 90s is when it kind of like formulated stuff. Yeah, the breakup of the Iron Curtain.
Yeah. So what GPRS or GRF, whatever it is going to screw a lot of people. But again, the problem is, as you said, it's going to be small builders that will struggle because places, if you've got, say, a shop in Europe that sells your pedals, that shop can be your representative. If you've got a distributor who works, a distributor in Europe, that's your representative. So it's the small people like us that don't have stuff in shops and don't live in the EU itself that.
Because I knew it wasn't going to affect the major manufacturers at all. That it was only people like Stego and other small builders that I saw, and just they wouldn't like really explain why. They just said regretfully we can't ship as of this date, and I was like, what's happened? So I figured I'd ask.
This is part of the problem. Is a lot of people are asking why because no one's entirely sure. It's weird.
It's out of the blue. Yeah.
Well, and that's the problem. It's not out of the blue. It's been like a 10-year thing. We've known this. Everyone theoretically knew this was coming, but just no one talked about it.
That's why.
I mean, in America, it makes sense. You are your own massive trading block. If the rest of the world didn't exist, you could still sell pedals and it would be absolutely fine. For England, it's frustrating. Or for the UK, sorry, because that's the other thing. We can't Northern Ireland. We can't even send stuff to Northern Ireland anymore because they're still, because of Brexit, they are part of the EU, whatever it is, compliance zone. So we can't even send things to Northern Ireland, which sucks.
Do you actually send a lot of pedals over to Europe?
No. Again, I was chatting to someone the other day about this. I think I've sold 2 to Europe. No, sorry, I've sold 3 pedals to Europe in the last year, but 2 of them to the same guy. So I don't. Most of my stuff's either UK or America. It's very rare for stuff to go to Europe.
Also, a lot of us in the American markets, we sell to Japan. The Japanese love a lot of the stuff from America. Like they show up at our guitar shows all the time. I mean, I'm very friendly with several Japanese guys that show up with nothing to sell, and they end up by the time that the show's over with stacks of cases and amplifiers and effects, and it's all going back across to Japan. Like they show up with professional quality blacklight flashlights that will burn a hole through you. Oh yes. I mean, and man, they know.
Memory lane.
Hey, what's up?
So I finally received the pedal. It made it, but I haven't managed to plug it in yet. I will be doing a demo through my new amp very shortly. But,
he might be able to answer this. Is Portugal in the EU? Because he's based in Portugal, so
definitely in the EU.
Yeah. I was going to say 99%, but we did get sidetracked. That's what podcasts are for.
Yes.
So
we're only an hour in, mate.
We got on saying he does send some to the EU, and also Warren says he buys a lot from Japan. He's over in Alaska. So is it the same? Is it for you, John? Do you buy from Japan as well, or is it?
I used to.
Mostly
I bought a lot of stuff from Japan. Like my main trades, 99% of the time I was going back and forth with, if it was going across the Atlantic, it was going to the UK or somewhere like that. And if it was otherwise, I was going across the Pacific to Japan.
Cool.
Yeah. And
sorry, Simon, I couldn't.
No, it's weird because Late Night Simon the other night got into a deep dive on and it's stupid Josh Scott. Why do you have to do that? A Maxon Fireblade series.
I love that. I never did.
Neither did I. And then I woke up. In fact, it was last night because I woke up this morning to a bunch of emails of like, "Thanks for ordering this, this, and this." And I've ordered all the parts to build one, which is just need to stop that.
So which one are you building? Oh, the Fireblade series?
The Tube Screamer one. So the ODF one. Yeah, and I mean it's basically a Tube Screamer with the gain filter is a slightly bigger cap, and the low pass filter for the treble is a slightly bigger cap. So more bass, less treble. But the thing that got me when I was looking at it again today in the cold hard light of sobriety was it's the TA 7558 OPAMP, which was in the very early run TS9s, and I've got Joyo, and it's so weird, and I don't want to say it's China, but I think it's China. Anyway, Joyo made a signature guitar pedal for someone called the Tai Chi, and it's a TS9. It's a hot rodded TS9 pedal. And it's not the thing is, it's not the Tai Chi most people are thinking of, because they re-released the Tai Chi, which is their Zendrive clone. This was, in fact,
he happens to have one right here.
Look at that.
This. So
nice.
This was the signature pedal of someone. It's a hot rodded TS9. It was my first. It was one of the. This and the TS5 were the first two Tube Screamers that I went, oh, I get it now. They're great. And this is 4 MA150 clip-in diodes and the TA 7558P OPAMP, which was, as I said, early run TS9s. Amazing pedal. They were about 30 quid because it's Joyo. And then it disappeared. And not just the pedal disappeared, the guitarist behind it, like the signature. It's like China did that thing where they went, no, that person never existed. I don't know what you're talking about.
He probably had the wrong political views, man.
He probably got a ticket on the bus.
That's my
bus ride.
So yeah, if you see I think they are. Places like Australia still had some. In fact, I think this one I got from Canada because I had another one that I modified and I wanted a stock one. They're about 40 quid. And they're well worth it just because it's a custom enclosure as well. It's not just the normal size Joyo overdrive. It's slightly larger. It's amazing. But
I'll be on the lookout for them.
Yeah.
And Hubcap John says more bass, less treble. Sounds like a Vemuram Jam Ray. Mate, you're calling me out here because I'm actually filming a video of building a Jam Ray as we speak. It's basically a Timmy, isn't it?
It's weird. So I bought the Late Night Simon bought the Demon Effects Jan Ray, and I instantly did that smug before I plugged it in. I went, it's just going to sound like a Timmy. It's just going to sound like a Timmy. And then played it. It doesn't quite sound like a Timmy, and I couldn't grasp why it didn't sound like a Timmy, but I loved it. I absolutely adored it. So I then actually not Late Night Simon, but normal Simon bought the original Vemuram version. Which arrived broken, which was amazing given the price.
No way.
It's
Did you buy it new?
No, I bought it used. But the pots, they're on those kind of right angle legs, and it literally sheared off. So the pot was still hanging on the. Yeah, I don't know. Someone must have knocked it, or just a dodgy pot.
That's not just a knock. That's a.
No, that's a yeah. But it was worth opening because there's loads of really interesting things. Like it's all gold. All the coupling's gold rather than copper and stuff, and it's fancy gold Nutrix jacks, and it's a solid brass enclosure, which they reckon helps with the grounding. I don't know. It weighs it's like the heaviest guitar pedal I've ever held, but it's one of my favorite pedals, and it sounds amazing. And to say it's just a Timmy,
it's the same topology.
It's the same topology.
It's the same thing that like Brian talks about all the time and Josh talks about all the time. You know, just because it shares the same topology, it's not make it.
Yeah.
It's not a tube screamer just because it has an op amp and
Soft
these
clipping
little
diodes. Yeah.
It's like,
I think the big thing with the jam ray is the tone control, because it's a larger cap to ground. By default, it's cutting more treble, and that ends up shifting kind of where that mid focus is, so it feels much more mid heavy. And yes, they've used all the wrong pot. All the pots are linear, so the sweeps are terrible. But I think I had to have it like
matter of opinion.
No, it's honest. The sweeps. It's not just opinion. They nothing had like the bass control. Like nothing happens, and all of a sudden that last bit it just jumps. Treble controls.
How's it at 2 o'clock?
Say again.
2 o'clock. How's it sound at 2 o'clock for everything?
Yeah.
Do you think like using
that's
a reverse audio? Like
that's it. They should be.
Reverse audio is what they should have done, probably.
Yeah, but both the tone control should be reverse audio, and then log for the gain and stuff. But it's one of those pedals. I think I have it bass at 9 o'clock, treble at 3 o'clock, volume at 9 o'clock, gain at 3 o'clock. Yeah, 3-3-3-9, and it sounds amazing. And it's really thick, and it's closer to the original Tim, like the big box Tim. Mm-hmm. If you've got the boost on, it's closer to that sound than it is stock Timmy.
Yeah. I've never played one, but I will find out when I build a Vero board version.
Yeah, you've got make sure you've got to use all the electrolytics are from their own company, so they're all branded Vemuran, which is cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm not.
It's stupid. No, it's like when you. But that's what's weird is the diodes and the op amp are stupid, like just normal. There's nothing fancy about it, but they've gooped the diodes. But then everything else is like they've spent money to make it.
Yeah, I gotta say, I like that though. I really like that, and I think some people would say, "Oh, well, you could build it for 30 quid." Yeah, you could, but it's not the same thing then.
No. Have you ever played any of the Free the Tone / Providence stuff?
Yeah. So what's the Free the Tone drive that literally everyone has? Oh God.
So there's the Providence Stampede, like the SOV2.
The Stampede, that's all the red one.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Again, Tube Screamer, but that isn't a Tube Screamer. And yeah, I've got the SOV2 and the Free the Tone Steel String Singer. I don't know. Their Dumble thing.
That's the one that I'm more familiar with. Yeah, the String Singer. Yeah.
Amazing. And again, you open it up and it's like the highest quality components. They've done a couple of things which they reckon are magic, and I disagree with. One is it's a custom enclosure, and they go on about how it's so thin, and again, it helps conduct ground. Seems like witchcraft. Who knows? It's audio. It's all witchcraft. But my favorite thing is, rather than soldering in the op amp, they've put it in a socket, but then they've put a metal clamp over it to hold it in place.
I do like that.
But it's again, part of me is like, that's amazing. Part of me is like, why didn't you just solder it in? It would have been fine. But because again, they're like, we use this metal clamp to hold it in for a better better integrity of the signal. It's like, you could have just soldered it in. It would have been fine.
No, there's
I just like
something to that because in my experience with some of these circuits, like just moving little pieces of metal around in the vicinity of the components, like suddenly radio stations would appear. I mean, and I could change the tuning just by where I, put like a little piece of wire, just inside of the circuit. So maybe that's a shielding thing that's for a good reason. So I'm a big fan of Mark and Sound Lad Liverpool. I'm super excited about the Sketchy pedal. With his Scran, when he was making when he first started batch building the Scran, he had a couple of problems with them early on. And again, it's wonderful because he then documents it, and he's very honest. He's like, "This was the problem. I tried to figure it out, and I fixed it. And this is what I've done." And being that open and honest is, you don't really see that from companies with stuff like that. And it had two transformers, like custom wound transformers, and two custom inductors. And he realized that literally, like how you physically place these inductors and these transformers, hugely changed. And he had the scope up, and he was showing. It's like, it's not just me hearing it. Like, this is it on a scope. Here's the proof.
See.
So good.
Yeah,
I've actually asked him to come on the show as well, and he said when he's not busy after this,
he's swamped. Yeah,
I know. Well, I'm so excited about that. Like, what a guy.
Yeah. Although I do fear that with a Scouser in, two Scousers, I wonder if John will struggle.
I'll be honest, mate. I'm basically.
What do you say, mate? I mean, you're talking to somebody who grew up watching the BBC and listening to everything Monty Python. So I mean,
but Monty Python.
I don't think I'll be able to
Whenever I go abroad, people don't think I'm English abroad. They think I'm German.
It's a very
And I grew up in the rural South, and there's a lot of the Queen's English still spoken in the rural South. So I mean, it's kind of similar.
Scouse isn't the Queen's English.
I know,
exactly.
Well, it's very much its own.
Neither of the dialects that came out of that. So,
I've lost my accent now. He has a real big accent.
Yeah.
I'm basically posh.
Well, I spend a lot of time listening to the MMA fighters from Liverpool, and so Paddy the Batty, and
I think
Paddy's probably the most scouse that you're gonna get, and I understand him. I understand all the slang and the dialect, so I think I'll be okay.
Warren's asked if anyone's messed with Desertronics. I think I've seen him.
Is it Dazatronics, the Australian guy?
That's who I'm thinking. He does the little tiny
Devtronics.
His circuits look unbelievable.
I know.
Sorry,
you're supposed to be getting one, aren't you? Soon.
Yeah,
the Devtronics one. Yeah, or no, you did get one.
Yeah, no, that's a different one, mate.
It's a different one.
That's Dev Audio.
Oh, okay, Dev Audio. So there's a different.
No, this is Peak Australian. Yeah, it's Peak Australian because the guy's name's Darren. So Dazatronics. It's brilliant.
Okay.
Dazatronics.
So he does sort of it's like point to point. It's like tag board, but he does layers of tag board in an amp. It's sort of like a well-organized magnetone. That sort of
this out. Yeah.
He's made a big muff, hasn't he? Which is tag board, but again, it's like rows of tag board.
Oh wow!
He makes a mockery of what I do. He does the stand up on its own tag board strips instead of an actual tag board like I use, and he does layers of it. It's insane. I don't know why he's covering the back of his pedals. It makes no sense because I would never have that. Might as well just leave them open.
Well, I found that someone on Etsy sells. Unfortunately, it's from America, but someone on Etsy sells those clear clear covers for them.
I've seen them, but then I realised my wiring isn't neat enough to have all that clear stuff.
Same.
When you look inside one of the Dazatronic things,
it's amazing.
I know who you're talking about. It's like they put little landscapes and stuff inside of there.
Yeah. It's just insane the way they
Yeah.
It's just so much packed into a small space. It shouldn't fit.
That's what she said.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry. I'm still looking. So, I hate to be that guy bringing things back to OPAMPs, but
you should
there's still. I should. No, I was the thing was I was a teacher, but I was. They were they're 16 plus, so I was very easily distracted. And then when you try to bring people back onto what you're talking about, and they're like, "Boo." So I was going to. So there's a few things here. So as I said, the two big things that I build are the Hot Toddy, which is 2 discrete op amps, and the Nightingale Drive. This is my new release.
That's the one that I've been hearing a lot of great things about.
We've been trying to remember what it was called for 2 weeks now. It's
frustrating because again, it's I put so much effort into the promoting and getting this out there, and I said this is now on 104 or 5, which is mind blowing to me. And again, when you say that, and you had someone when SoundLad started was helping Andy from Funny Little Boxes, and they had those 1,000 orders to fill, and watching Mark put together his construction, he's like, "Yeah, I can knock out 50 before work." And you're like, Jesus, I built 100 in a year, and it destroyed me. So the Nightingale, I love it. Those two are my favorite. I use them all the time. The prototype's on my board. It's knackered, but I love it. But I know that I've not put the same amount of promotion and stuff into it. So hopefully after New Year and stuff, next year, that's the plan to really push that. But there are lots of other things as well. So again, another one that I haven't pushed using the Hot Toddy circuit. This is the Scream Toddy. So it reworks it to be a tube screamer, and then uses this VCS knob. Because I'm a daft prick, who I love Japan. As I said, I adore the Vemuran stuff, Free the Tone. I've not played a bad pedal they've made yet. But their the blurbs is just nonsense. Like the Free the Tone holistic tone circuit, which is literally a Cornish buffer. Like, it just blows my mind at it. But anyway, yeah, the truest bypass as well, which I ended up nicking because just the concept. But it was basically their thing was that if you've got the 3 pins, like obviously it's 9 pins on a foot switch, they say if you've got the input and the output on 2 pins and that's it, when you're in bypass, it's not going through anything else. So you've not got the bridge, you've nothing. Literally, there's your input, there's your output. Less things to fail, less solder, less wire.
Put your input tracks closer to your switch then.
No, well, that was it. So, but it's still like, obviously, if you've got the 9 pins, most of us have that kind of bridge there, don't we? So you've got 3, and like input here, bridge around,
but I mean,
and then you're using 4 pins.
You got to bridge it.
Start mounting them. Just move them to the bottom, and then they're even closer.
Yeah,
but then
that's it. Their big thing was just like fail points. Basically, there's fewer fail points. So I nicked it, and then I very quickly. And I got some PCBs made. So I've jokingly called the truest bypass. And then I watched I was flicking through Instagram and saw a Z-Vex thing, and it turns out that's how Z-Vex wires his foot switches already. I mean, it makes no difference, but it's but yeah, all of their blurb. Sorry, say again. Not new.
It's not a new thing.
No.
There's nothing new under the sun, as what I found.
Yeah, so the VCS thing was a joke, kind of based on that. So it's variable clipping saturation, and it is the decompress knob from the Nordland stuff. So the guy that the original designer behind Noble's left and then made his own brand. So he does like the ODR1 and stuff, but his original takes on them because he was the designer. And the decompress knob is fucking brilliant. Like, and it's so simple, but it's genius. So it's essentially, if you imagine the Timmy clipping thing, where it's the 4 diodes, but then bridged in the middle. So it's like, can he do it with his fingers? No, because I can't do gang signs. But yeah, so it's like 4 diodes with a bridge in the middle.
It's all right. We're demonetized by now already. So
yeah, we need to come up with a gang sign.
for the Timmy diode. But yeah, so it's 2 diodes with a bridge on the middle, and then it's 2 LEDs on the other side. And then you put a pot across the LEDs, so that when the pot's fully one way, it shorts, so you're just hearing the 2 silicon diodes. And then as you dial it in the other way, you're creating a different route. So some of it then goes through the LEDs, and some of it goes through that pot.
I think the plimsoll from oh god,
not Full Tone.
Full Tone, Full Tone. I think that's how that works. It brings in the clipping, the LED clipping.
Yeah, that's what. So mine's the other way.
It takes it out as you talk.
Yeah, so when the pot's fully left counterclockwise, you're hearing all of it. So you're obviously getting much less clipping, and then as you turn it clockwise, you're hearing less of the LEDs and just the other. So it's obviously clipping more and more.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do that instead of a toggle switch, because you still get the LEDs essentially and then diode. So variable controlled saturation, because a holistic tone control and all the other nonsense, which is 3 syllables that real cool kids use.
Buzzwords.
Buzzword. I make a Zen drive as well called Zen Thippy, which is the same. You know, it's these discrete op amps, and that's I'm mad at myself because I'm just terrible at life, but I'm terrible at publicity and stuff. And it's honestly, I've only made a few. I think I made 5 or so. But everyone that's got one has messaged, go, oh my God, this is incredible. And a couple of them, like, I've got original Zen drives and this has just replaced it. And that's the pedal that I'm really proud of, but I'm also really lazy and just haven't pushed enough. And I also don't have one to show you because, again, when I build them, I'll be talking to someone and be like, oh, I just built this. And they're like, cool, I'll have that. So I don't have one. One I built this. There's only 2 of these. I built myself one, and there was one out in the world. This is the pseudo-sidonia, sorry. It is a 25 volt discrete op-amp tube screamer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds class.
The other person who's got one is not LST. The guy, his name's Mark, and he makes the Bossy Gnome fuzz pedal.
Yeah, LST.
Lost. LST is
yes, that's it. Yeah,
Lost. It's Lost Gnome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mark's an amazing guy.
He's great.
There's lots of Marks, yeah. But yeah, he's got the other one.
Lots of Marks and Johns and
Yeah. I blame the Bible. So yeah, so there's that. This was my big box original for the Dumblemore. Many years ago, I became obsessed with trying to get a Dumble in a box. Again, it was one that I made loads of. This was one that got hit when when you couldn't get J201s all of a sudden. This took a big hit because this is like 2, 4, 6 J201s and stuff. Yeah. This one, which is bad to fuck. This is the Momentum Drive. This was my take on the Greer Lightspeed, but with a toggle switch to go between 9 and 18 volt. Again, it's one that I don't build very often because it's very similar. Again, the Greer Lightspeed is very similar to a Timmy anyway. So in my head, this is very similar to the Hot Toddy. Although people that own both claim but they are surprisingly different, and they are quite different. But I feel like I can get most of it.
Doesn't take a lot to change them, though, does it? That's the thing.
No, and I feel like I could get like 90% of the tones out of the Hot Toddy that I can get out of the Momentum. But so going through these was because I wanted to get to this, which is the other picture that I sent Joe. So this is a germanium discrete op-amp wrapped. So we've been talking about using JFETs for discrete op-amps. And you can use BJTs, and as I said, you can use MOSFETs. So if Joe, if you could be so kind as to find the hand-drawn one, which is going to be a mess. I know it's a mess.
Oh, I'm on it, mate. I'm on it.
Yeah.
I knew this one was coming.
Yeah. So this was what I was thinking of Budget for Pedal Shop the other day because he demoed this. I called it the Tone Flexor. So in the 90s, Colour Sound released the IC Tone Bender. And I discovered that and I went, oh, that's cool. What if I did that with discrete op amps? So I did, and then it's quite quiet, so then I added another transistor to boost at the end, and I ended up using more transistors in an IC op amp tone bender than in a normal tone bender, which feels counterintuitive. But yeah, and then I added a clean blend as well, which isn't on the schematic. Yeah, this was just the stock one, but there's one mistake. R5 should be 33K, but this is a BJT version of the discrete op amp. So this particular one, I've stolen. So whereas the Boss style one I stole from the Bot Blues driver, this I've stolen from the Seymour Duncan pickup booster, which again is a pedal that you rarely see, but I feel like has quite a buzz when people use it. And it's one of those ones where you can see they wanted to get around having to make a VREF and save parts and stuff. So we've still got the two transistors. We've still got the one on the left being the non-inverting input, so that would be pin 3, and then the one on the right is going to be the inverting input, so that would be pin 2. And then you can see we've still got the same kind of feedback loop as well. So we've got this this PMP transistor to buffer the output from the first one.
It's your Q3 right there.
Yeah, the worst thing is I'm doing it with my pen and tracing it, and you can't see it with my little screwdriver. You can't see me doing the cool bits. But yeah, so that's buffering the output from the non-inverting side and then feeding it back through. As I said, the problem with this, and this has a lot more limitations. The big problem is you can't have more than 100K of feedback between Q3 and Q2 essentially. So if you're going to use this to make normal circuit or like other circuits, take the Timmy. If you're going to use this to build a Timmy, you'd have to do the maths to convert everything from the 1 meg and to kind of take everything down a tenth. So rather than 1 meg gain pot, use 100K. Rather than 3K3 resistor for the feedback, you use 330 ohm. Rather than 47 NF filter cap, you use 470. It's things like that. So you'd have to do the maths of it.
At least it's all in decimal. Like you wouldn't have to.
It's super. Yeah. It's easy maths.
Yeah, it doesn't require complex equations and imaginary numbers.
No, thank God.
It's just a simple decimal point movement.
Yes, But yeah, and as you can see, I built this. So this was the original Tone Mender one I built, and I just used two M3904s and a 3906, and it sounded cool. So I then developed that a little bit more, and ended up with, as I said, the Rat, which used a pair of MPN germanium transistors for what would be Q1 and Q2 on this, basically. And because the Rat is already 100k resistor as the gain control, thanks Proco, just for using 100k pots for everything. It works. You could make a Rat using this BJT transistor discrete op amp.
Really cool.
But as I said, I've made a mistake. R5 should be 33k. That's the big error on this. But did I use it for something else? I don't know. Probably. But yeah, so as I said, discrete op amps are it's well worth giving it a go. With the JFET ones, it's nice that you can just pick up any of the same JFET and just try things. You don't need to worry about biasing. You don't need to get your multimeter out. And as I said, because it's less fussy, you could literally just put it into any op-amp gain stage and just drop it in, and it should go. There was a few people, so Orange amplifiers make their own one that you can buy that is in the kind of DIP 8 arrangement, so you can drop it straight into a socket. They want 40 quid for it though, so I wouldn't recommend that. Yeah, it's
well, I mean,
when
you're making something in small batches, that's what it starts costing. I mean, it's the economy of scale starts coming into play. Yeah, you could get somebody to make you a custom run of anything you want, as long as you're willing to pay what it. Yeah. And once you've paid for the tooling and the molds and everything else and all that's paid for, then the cost starts going down the more you order. But if you don't have a demand for 1.5 million units, you're going to be stuck paying a lot per unit.
Let's not talk about cost after my last couple of videos. I got hammered.
Oh, I know.
I was batting them away.
How many new trolls have you gotten? You've got quite a collection. You've got quite a collection.
All of Josh Scott's followers hate me.
Great.
It's weird. I've chatted to a few people after Josh Scott made that video. I chatted to a few people about this, and it is weird because Josh Scott we're in such different leagues because we're just doing it ourselves and we don't have the same overheads. To us, it is like 30-40 quid to make a pedal. Whereas for Josh Scott, you've then got the cost of the employees, health insurance, premises, everything else, distribution, packaging,
economy.
I really wasn't calling that into question. I was just saying how much could I make this pedal for type thing. But because I provocatively wrapped the video, it just. Oh my God!
Hey,
some people really took offense to that, and I was like, "Well,
there's no such thing. There's no such thing as bad attention, Joe. It's 101.
Oh, you know, I'm a princess and I love all attention, so that's what it is. But I made another video costing out one of my cost-off drives, thinking, you know what, this'll appease them because I touched on all the points that I got picked up for, and it didn't. But they are going strong. Them videos have got loads of views. I'll take it.
That poor Sot that launched that whole controversy, like his channel that hardly had any like usable content suddenly like got more views.
Lit up,
I mean, it's like he was a great player, but like I heard him talk about things. I was like, oh, I'm not going to take his advice on any gear. And then, like all of a sudden he touched on JHS. And he chose them for his scapegoat, and I was like, "Was that calculated to get more views for your channel?" Because he knew there was going to be a rabid response.
Yeah,
mine was meant to be a fanboy type thing. I love Josh.
I know. I saw where you were going. I saw where you were going with it. It was almost like, oh, they're going to misunderstand Joe, and this is going to be so funny.
People are still commenting on it, saying he's not ripping us off. Blah blah blah. I was like, have you watched the video? Because about halfway through, I say, put your prices up.
Well, it's like it was like, but it's that same. Remember when Vertex released a video saying I got cloned when NUX released this, and that's it. If you watch the video, he's like, actually, I haven't got cloned. It just looks like it because it's a similar style, but this is a tube screamer and it's nothing like the pedal that I nicked. But because people just saw the headline and jumped on it, didn't they, straight away? And
but he got a lot of comments and views for it.
Oh yeah, that's it. It's all interactions, isn't it?
We've got a question here. What about germanium leaking?
So
I'm guessing that's for the germanium diodes.
Yeah, for the germanium.
Sorry,
VAT.
for this,
Yeah.
for this thing.
Thank you, Alex.
I don't know. I'm with germanium stuff, because I don't build many fuzzes. I'm not really hugely fussed. I'm very much a drop in. If it sounds good, cool. If it doesn't, take it out. So I think I built 5 of these because those were the ones that had 5 good pairs that sounded all right. So I don't know. It won't be the same as with Fuzz Face because the arrangement's completely different. I think you do need to get a little bit closer with the gain matching, which again is easy, really. You can measure gain, can't you, quite simply?
Yeah.
But with all of these, as a the kind of start of this, the kind of fuck around, find out mentality in a positive way, I always call it dicking around with pedals, because it is, and you can play around and try different things. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Unfortunately, and I put my hands up to this all the time. I'm that kind of guy that if it works, I kind of don't mess with it. I kind of like, oh, cool, it works, and then that's it. So don't question or kind of look much further into things if it works. And with the germanium rat, it worked. I was like, cool, that's it.
So, Tick that one off, and I'll move on and never build another one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, I say this all the time that I'm a bad example for a lot of things because I'm like a golden retriever with toys. Like you get a new toy, you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, and then you turn around, there's another toy, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing, and you completely forget about. So yeah, like most of these things that I was kind of talking through are all kind of, other than the Hot Toddy and the Nightingale, the rest were like things that I built, became obsessed with, and then just like literally the next day went, oh, what's this? What's this? Yep. Yeah. I will. This isn't this great OPAMP, but I wanted to talk about this, and I think I wanted to talk about this because it was something that John and I were talking about very briefly, and I've made lots of videos of very recently about. Do either of you know Theo from Theo and his Pedals?
Know of him and really like the content that he's put out. Yeah. You haven't seen any of his stuff? He's got some cool stuff. Yeah, he has. Awesome guy, massive color sound, like big box color sound pedal collection. Yeah, that's where I first became aware of him, was seeing his posts about his color sound collection, and he actually uses them on gigs and many years ago he sent me some stuff to mod. And then over the years, whenever he needs, he'll buy these big color sound things, and they'll need some TLC. So he sends them to me. I give them some TLC and send them back, and then he puts them on a shelf in kind of pristine condition. Last year, he sent me a few things to mod and fix, and one of them was a color sound bass fuzz, like the big box. Yeah. And the thing was, I was amazed. I'd never seen those color sound pedals in real life, so the grandeur of them is amazing. Like they're awesome. So there was the bass fuzz, a super fuzz, super bass, and the color sound overdriver, like the 18-volt one. And I opened up the bass fuzz and looking at it going, this looks awful. Like this looks like a hack job. And honestly, it was a mess. And I was like, had you modified this? And no, I bought it kind of pretty much new off someone. I was like, is this what? And then Googled it, expecting to see the same circuit. And if you don't know, the bass fuzz is a big muff. It's kind of a reworked big muff to work with bass. Yep.
This was not a big muff. This was a tiny little. I'm so mad that I didn't take pictures. I'm sure I did take pictures, but I can't find them anymore. I sent them to Theo though, so there are pictures. But I opened it, and it's a tiny little board on the side. And then some botched soldering or weird components to the pot, to the tone control. And I was looking at it going, this is like an IC tone bender, but it's not. And so I traced it, and it was like a transistor stage. You know, in the DS1, that boost stage at the start, it was that into an IC tone bender, and then into I know on the full tone OCD, that style of tone control, where it's like So it was that, and I was like, "This isn't right." It's like, has someone modified it or anything like that? And so he messaged Solar Sound and Damn and people like that, and it turned out it was a Dick Denny prototype. That it was one of the prototypes he made, because he made them all in he would build them, put them in the original boxes because that's what he had at hand, And then if he didn't like, but the thing is, if he didn't like it, he just put it in a bin. But like when I say bin, like cardboard box, and I was like, no, I hate it. And there's been a few pedals over the years. There was like an octave thing as well, which he did exactly the same thing with. He put it in a bin, and then someone came around and went, "Why aren't we selling this? It's cool." And he went, "No, I don't like it." And they went, "Yeah, but you're not in charge," so they would sell them. And so I traced it, and then I fixed it, sent it back to him, and he ended up selling it to Dam as well. So I was then in a rush to try and get ahead of it and kind of launch it. But the problem is, it doesn't sound very good. Now,
which is why it ended up in the bin.
Which is why it ended up in the bin. So the way he's built it, it makes perfect sense that it's a transistor stage smashing the hell out of this op-amp with a single pair of 1M4148s in the feedback loop. And because there's so much volume going through, you get a clean blend. Like it overloads so much that the clean signal passes through. So for a bass, that's great because you've got this kind of clean attack almost, but then loads of filth with it. So I traced it and I built it. I built it completely stock like that. Oh no, it's not true. I modernized it slightly. So I used like a reverse log pot for the gain, added some filtering and stuff. And yeah, I built it and I just couldn't. I knew it was cool, but there was something not right about it. And again, I built a couple and sent them out. And the feedback was kind of like, it's all right. And then again, it was very recently, literally like a month ago, Late Night Simon went, "What if you change the diodes?" I went, "What if I change the diodes?" I made a couple of changes. So I literally changed the diodes, and the tone control is now different. It's the, we talked about it last time I was on, the Stupidly Wonderful Tone Control 2.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I love those.
So it's this, which I'm still trying to figure out a name for. Currently it's literally just the Lost Tone Bender, but now it sounds amazing. So I've put up the last few videos I've put up have been of me playing this, and it finally sounds great, and I'm really stoked about it. But I need to figure out a name and aesthetic, and I'm not a fuzz guy, so I can't. When I talk about the hot toddy, it makes sense because that's who I am, like low gain, discrete op-amp.
You should call it the BLT, Bender Lost Tone. You could have like a picture of a sandwich on it.
I would, but what's Will from a Rocket Complex already called it pedal the BLT.
Oh, do you know what? That's where I've got it from, isn't it?
Yeah,
probably why.
I thought, wow, I've come up with something amazing. Already exists.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go for LTB because I've got the LTM, which was the little treble maker, so it's still kind of in
the wheelhouse there.
Yeah, but it's frustrating because I'd planned to go for silver, so I've got shed loads of the purple knobs because obviously the original bass fuzz enclosure is the big silver with purple knobs and purple lettering, and I thought that would be cool, but it's kind of not very cool. So yeah, 2025, my plan is to kind of really double down on that and the Nightingale drive, and then build more other stupid random things and completely forget about those. So yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah.
Wow. Mate, you should do one of them in the same box as one of your compressors and do that for bass. That would be fantastic with like clean blends and there's a big market there. Bass pedals. How many companies actually? I mean, I can only think of Goliath Effects, really.
For boutique, people. I think Goliath's one of the few. Obviously, people like Ashdown that obviously make bass amps, make some great pedals, and Fender have now just released their range of bass pedals.
Bit mass produced.
Too mass produced. He says BLT. Isn't there an American diner called Denny's? There are very few Denny's left anymore. I think almost all of them have closed down. But BLT stands for bacon, lettuce, and tomato, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was originally going to call it the Dastardly Fuzz because Dick Dastardly.
Oh yeah.
Dick Denny.
Yes.
But I don't know if I like the name. I have got on the PCB. It does say Dick Denny was here on the PCB as well.
So much time for that. That's kind of like school graffiti.
It could be the DDT. It could be the DDT.
DDT.
The Dick Denny Tone Bender.
What is DDT as a thing though? Is it an explosive?
Yeah, it's poison. No, that's poison.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe actually.
Yeah.
But then what kind?
Hang on a minute.
It was like an insecticide.
we suggest a sandwich and normal things. He's like, no. And then you say poison kills people. He's like, oh yeah, quite like that.
Because skulls and death and poison and stuff are cool.
Yeah.
Rock and roll.
They are cool.
I mean, wait, there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's because there's so many.
I'm not used to this mirror imaging here. Yeah. I'm like, I'm pointing left, and it's.
The problem with my room is that because I'm in the center of it, I'm with a reach and a bit of like 400 pedals. So
I put all mine on a shelf so that I wouldn't be tempted.
This was the last iteration of the Horse Whisperer.
Oh, nice!
Oh,
I like the stepped up knobs like that.
Yeah.
So hard to do.
I love this pedal. Like, obviously, you've got the very first prototype. And there was a few iterations throughout, and then this one is the closest to the actual Klon. So it's got the dual stereo gain control, so it's clean blend shifting. The tone control's right. I love it. Runs at 18 volt I couldn't do. Yes. Oh, with the discrete op amps, they're funny about negative voltages, which kind of makes sense. So when you with a lot of ICs, as I said, when I've put on that little schematic, it's V plus and V negative. And I've not put 9 volt on ground because it's not that. It's your positive voltage and your negative voltage. So, like, this was the other thing I grabbed. The little treble maker. This is my own little treble maker. I went to see, as a tangent, These Wicked Rivers. The other night. They're just amazing. And the guitarist uses 2 of these. He's got one that's always on. Sorry, I was just reading.
There's a Denny's in Alaska.
Yeah.
I thought Alaska was
barren,
a bit more sparse. Yeah.
No, not in certain areas. I mean, there's a lot of open space, but I think Warren's in probably one of the few developed areas.
Well, when he shows a picture of outside his window, I think he's living in the wilderness, mate. So,
oh yeah. Well, compared to you, yeah, like you're used to seeing the next building like 3 feet away from you.
Well, less than that. Let me tell you now that it's normally attached. Let me tell you now, there's a tree in my street, so I'm actually posh and living in rural England now.
You have your own private oxygen supply.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. We just got a load of questions, comments, and so 3D printing your own knobs. I've got a mate out in America in Seattle who did 3D print me some, and no one liked them, so I didn't use them.
I feel like the Sound Boutique started doing it because he was buying the kind of amp style knobs and he realized it was easier to basically make them himself.
Oh, did he?
I think so.
He sent me a load of knobs and I thought he'd sourced them.
Oh, he might have, but there was definitely something where
this was a long time ago.
These Wicked Rivers are awesome. You're right. Yeah.
Never heard of them. I need to do some checking.
Great band. So they've got the guitarist has got an LD Dorino, which is a Hubcap John overdrive, and then he's got a little treble maker that's always on, and one of my compressors and a fuzz that I built, a germanium fuzz that I built him, and
he basically made him a board.
To be fair, I did. So the board he's got at the moment, I wired up for him, and it's like 25 pedals. It's huge, like double layered. It's crazy.
Man. I love it.
Yeah, but he's an amazing guitarist, and he gets the most out of everything he's got as well. But yeah, so positive and negative voltages with discrete op amps. They're funny about having the V minus as a negative voltage. So the Klon and the little treble maker famously use a charge pump to create plus 18 volt and minus 9 volt so that you get that headroom.
Yeah.
And I've tried doing that discrete op amp and it's funny about it, which I feel like that's part of what's the rest of the circuitry in a proper IC op amp is probably doing and making that work. But so it's kind of has to be ground as the negative voltage. The positive voltage can be anything. As I said, I've got a 25 volt tube screamer there. But yeah, the negative has to be ground. I'm trying to think of what other I built. As I said, with all these things, like when I discovered the Klon tone control, I stuck it on the end of every circuit I could think of. Yeah. So I made a blues breaker with the Klon tone control, one of my favorite pedals I ever made. I should have made more of them, but by then I'd already tried it on a different pedal and this and that. And so it's the same with discrete op amps. Once I got them to work, I just tried it in every single pedal I could think of. And when it works, they work, but when they sound good, they sound incredible. When they sound bad, they sound a bit empty. So they work best in low gain stuff because they're very clean, which again kind of makes sense. You've ripped out 1/10 of the components in the signal path, and because you're hand rolling it, you're very much in charge of how it's going to sound. So they always end up sounding quite open, very like responsive to playing dynamics. A phrase that I kind of use as well a lot is kind of light and airy. For the sound, like the Hot Toddy and the Nightingale Drive are both kind of light and airy tonally, and that's a large part of it. Is this the Boss style discrete op amps?
I'm thinking I may try a micro amp. That might be the circuit at first try with it.
Yeah, it works quite well. Again, the micro amp works. Dodd 250 works, which is obviously again the same, but was with hard clipping diodes. And again.
Rat.
Yeah, the Rat works.
I saw it.
Yeah, so I made one which was I called it the Rat Whisperer, which was a discrete op amp Rat with a clean blend in it. I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, basically, if you kind of name a pedal, I've probably tried it at discrete op amp, and I would encourage everyone. I would encourage everyone to give it a go. Just it's fun. It's very few components. They're not weird components either. That's what I quite like.
I feel like you could wire these up as dual op amps and sell the boards.
Oh yeah, sorry,
You know,
we were talking. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier when I was saying because Orange charged 40 quid. There was a company called IOTA Pedals, which is a German guy called Tim, and so there's an Austrian chap I speak to a lot who's done all my PCBs, which is Adam from AV Pedals, and we were chatting about discrete op amps, and IOTA had started doing PCB designs. And they'd been chatting, and IOTA had then tried these discrete op amps, loved it, and he was like, "Right, I'm going to make some PCBs so I can literally drop them into sockets and compare quickly." So he made a couple of single op amps, and then he made some dual op amps as well as these tiny PCBs that you just dropped in, and then life got in the way basically. So which is a real shame because I feel like there was a real opportunity there, and he could have done something cool with it. And I hope he made great pedals. I hope he kind of goes back to it at some point, but life gets in the way, doesn't it, with all these kind of things?
Well, I'm thinking for people like me who want to make their own op amp but don't want to have the hassle of, messing about. You could just literally pick up the PCB, wire all the components on, and then you're following someone else's design, then, aren't you? Rather than rather than being tempted to try and put it on tag board, which is what I'm trying to fight the urge right now. In my mind, I'm like, do I need to build one on tag board with caps the size of your fist?
Yeah, I mean, I'm even picturing it. I don't think it'd be that hard. I think because you'd have like the two transistors across, and
it would be easy. And you could make it. I could make a micro amp the size of an amplifier,
a macro amp, a micro.
Exactly that.
Yeah, honestly, it's well worth playing around with.
But there's loads available on like SMD type circuits that people have made up and then plugged into a, just the usual socket that you can get for audio applications, as you say, like Neve used to use them and stuff.
Yeah.
But you can buy them now. They're just so expensive though.
Well, those are the full op amp ones rather than they're full op amp and they're not normally dip 8, so which is the standard we normally use, like 4 aside, 4 pins aside. The pro audio ones tend to be in the kind of weird rounded things. And is it warm audio? Possibly warm audio.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I was just trying to think if it was them.
They've made clones of just about everything.
Yeah, I think it was Warm Audio because they did their range like little. So I've got some of the Golden Age projects, which was the same style, where they're like half U rack units, and you could buy. They sold their own like the fully discrete op amps. They're about 60 to 90 quid each, which is. But again, I kind of get it because in pro audio, that will make it in a 9-volt guitar pedal where everything's compressed and distorting anyway. There are tonal differences, but it's not quite the same as when you've got 240 volts going through something that's full range audio.
Yeah.
Their studio line of stuff, that's where they really were like paying attention in there.
Yeah, very much. And speaking of this, actually, because I think that's the other thing with the Scran is it's the Neve style stripped down. Like again, it's like a 3 transistor arrangement that is kind of an op amp, and I think that's what Mark's used in the Scran as well, and the clean machine. Yeah.
Let me just say, I think I found a picture of one of them dual op amps for anyone who's watching. If I can ever get this up, that is. Come on.
I'm just trying to see if that's the other annoying thing is when you buy pedals used and they don't come in the original boxes, and so I've got a stack of like white boxes that I'm not 100% sure what pedals in which, and I wish I could find this. As I said, it's discrete, so it's a tube screamer, but the first the clipping stage is a full discrete op amp, then it's an IC for the second stage, but then it's into a custom wound transformer for the output. And tonally, just phenomenal tone, and it's in a weird sized enclosure, so it's like slightly wider than a 1590A, but about the depth of a brick.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So this is what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like on a yeah, that's what I mean. It's on a Dip 8, but it's a tiny. There's something about this that really satisfies me.
Yeah.
I know it's SMD, and that's like the devil.
But no. I mean, that's how they're getting around.
That's a nice way of using it.
Putting the SMD stuff onto a Dip 8 package so that you can just drop it in.
Yeah.
And you don't have to solder the SMD yourself, basically.
Yeah, it's just it's just like using it. But I was thinking maybe, as you were saying before, the PCB that you can just buy and then populate yourself with through hole and then add it into your wires.
Okay.
You could just run wires into the into your second PCB, which would be a circuit type thing. And there's just something about that really satisfies my, weirdness.
I don't know why, but it is related to this. But it made me chuckle that. So as I said, I bought the new Tube Screamer hand-wired one, and the irony is everything's hand-wired apart from the dual op amp, which is SMD. And it feels like the weird, it's like the complete opposite of everything else is hand-wired. And there's a little SMD 4558.
I hate them little SMD. I tried to solder legs onto one for my amplifier builds. The old LM386. I ordered the wrong thing, and I was like, I can do it.
I remember,
An hour later, I was like, fuck this, I cannot do it.
Yeah, I bought some...
I'm gonna have to take one quick break real quick while you guys carry on.
Yeah.
I gotta run to the bathroom.
Cool. Yeah, I
didn't have a chance to do that before we started.
Bless you. I bought some LM1458 SMDs. So I got the K-Line Pure Sky is a Timmy clone. And when I very first started building pedals, I think I've said about this before, but basically it was cheaper to buy a K-Line or Joyo or Mosky version than it was to buy and build it yourself. Because you pick up the K-Line pedal for 25 quid. It's what
I remember you went through this stage of the K-Lines.
Yeah. I've still got most of them. And the
pedals.
Yeah. Well, this is what's frustrating. So the K-Line Pure Sky that I originally bought in 2017 was through hole with a socketed op amp. And I modified it slightly, and then when I finally bought a Timmy, I bought a Timmy V2. It was the closest pedal that I had in comparison, and so I kind of, to me, the K-Line Pure Sky was that. And I modified it. I added like the toggle switch for diodes, all this kind of stuff, and then I bought another one to do the same, and they'd moved over to SMD with it.
No,
and I then wondered, some of my mods, one of my main mods in it was the diodes. So could I do that anyway with the SMD stuff? And turns out I could. So I made one for Budget Pedal Chat years ago, and then somehow that picked up traction last year. And because Forderboard's got some of my pedals in stock. He's got the 100th Hot Toddy actually, which comes with a nice wooden box and a couple like a little PCB. of one of my very first designs, which was the pedal that must not be named, and some other cool stuff. It's like a whole little thing. But yeah, because obviously I had a relationship with him anyway, he messaged me going, "Do you think you could make more of these modified Pure Skies?" And I was like, "I think so. It's been a while. I don't really remember what I did with Adams." And yeah, so I bought. So the mods in that, I kind of removed the diodes, replaced them with Schottky and MOSFETs, and then a couple of other little bits, but obviously all with full size parts. So desoldering SMD is fine. Resoldering's a pain.
Oh mate, I did that the Paul Gilbert thing, the Mojo.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Fuck my life, that was awkward.
Well, that's it.
I haven't got anything here to do it properly. The mic, whatever I'm doing this like it's a monocle. The
the magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass.
Yeah.
I just couldn't see the thing. I'm getting old. Yeah.
One of those.
There you go.
Well, I'd bought some. So the original K-Line Pure Sky that I had a 4559 in it, and then the next one had a LM1458, and then from then on they all had what's it called? The GRC 4580. Yeah, the one that's the King of Tone.
Yeah.
And it's weird and it's frustrating because I've ranted about this before, and I don't mean to rant about it again, but I've got the entire collection of Paul Cochran Timmies, and love them, but each version gets progressively worse than the one before, in my opinion.
Really?
And it's because I totally get it, and we all have done it at some point. You build something and you think this is great, and it's like a couple of months later, you're like, oh, I wish I just want to make that tiny tweak. And he's done, because he's had the opportunity to do that. I feel like each version is probably closer to how he wanted it to sound, but it's further away from how I wanted it to sound, really.
Do you know what I've noticed? My ears have changed. So I used to be really against any treble in my tone whatsoever when I was a bit younger, and now I tend to like more treble than what I listen back to some recordings from back when we were talking about the K-Line. What was that? 2017,
17,
yeah. And I listen back to them and I think I need to turn the treble up on that, or higher mids or something. Maybe his ears changed and he's trying to.
That happens to a lot.
Well,
of
that's
people,
it. Yeah. I think it's a combination of things, but one of the things he's done. So the V1 is exactly what you think a Timmy is. The V2 adds in a capacitor in the feedback loop of the second op-amp stage, and it's that change that makes all the difference, because that suddenly cuts the treble more and starts to give you quite a kind of mid-forward thing. And by the version 3, that's quite, it's not, I say quite large, it's still like, it's like 6 and 8, which is tiny really, but it's big enough that it makes quite a noticeable mid-hump. Not a tube screamer, but still enough that you go back to the V1, it's like, it's very open and it's kind of beautiful, and then each version gets a little bit more midsy. Sorry, we lost everything above 13k. Yeah, all our ears have gone. But yeah, with the K-Line Pure Sky, because the op-amps change in each of the versions of the Timmy, they have in the K-Line as well. So I bought some, as I said, some SMD LM1458s to drop in, and Christ, so I did it on one, and I was like, for the amount of effort it doesn't make a big enough difference for the amount of effort that you have to go through for each one. And the rest of the change I made more of a difference than just swapping the op-amp anyway. So, there's a JSA modified K-Line. I don't know if I hope we do more. I really like them, but then Budget Pedal Chap did a comparison between an unmodified one and a modified one, and just did it with the knobs all at the same thing, and they sound completely different. And loads of people are like, oh yeah, the original sounds better. It's like, well, it's because it's distorting more and it's louder. What do you think? That's how our brains work. So but yeah, and to be fair, and even in the video, he's like saying quite a lot. It's like the modified one, it's responds way better to your playing dynamics. It cleans up better with the guitar volume. It's not as noisy. But yeah, people hear louder.
It's hard to show. It's hard to show that playing dynamics thing on a demo.
I
never understood why some demos didn't really show a pedal at its best. But now that I'm trying to demo pedals,
It's hard, isn't it?
You understand?
Yes, so hard. I just can't, because you can't play the same twice through the same. I just use a looper now. Play the loop and then off it goes, and that's the problem.
And then, I was going to say that takes you out of the equation. That's
exactly.
thing,
You lose that feedback loop of, oh, this sounds good, so I'll play better or lighter or harder or dig it, whatever.
Yeah.
You lose all of that, and then of course a pedal can sound better. So,
well, I really struggled. So again, the Little Troublemaker, I got onto PCB. I have a PCB version. I made a 3-knob version. I've come back to a 2-knob version. It's a long story. But anyway, trying to demo it is so hard because it's a boost pedal. So the pedal itself is clean. It's running at 35 volts. It is clean, but it's pushing something. So when you're hearing things distort, you're hearing the amp or the other drive, or that's what's distorting, not this pedal. Someone did a demo of it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's like a gentle overdrive." I was like, "I cannot explain how clean this pedal is. However, you're slamming your amp with it. That's what's distorting." So it's really, I really struggle with that, and the compressor. They're so hard to demo. Yeah. Because again, to use them properly, it's an amp distorting or a pedal distorting, and yeah.
So what I find the way that I know whether I like something is I have 1 or 2 channels that I watch all the time, like That Pedal Show, and if they say something about a sound, I know how it's going to translate to my sound because I've watched them for so many years, and that's the best way to find anything out about a pedal for me.
And the Andy Pro Guitar Shop / Reaver, however it sounds when he plays, however it sounds when he plays it, I've learned is when I've bought pedals that he's demoed, that's how it sounds when I play it. So I now kind of, if I want to see how something's going to sound, I watch his demo of it, and if I like it, I'm like, I'll probably like it then.
Speaking of demo, guys, whatever happened to Gearman, dude? I missed them pointy shoes and coily cables.
Oh yeah.
Mate, he was like the first ever demo guy. I was like, I've got a coily cable right next to me here because of him.
Someone asked it. I think it was family health.
I was going to say I hadn't heard anything or seen anything from, but I remember he was all over YouTube.
Yeah.
I was convinced he was Jack Black for some time, but he's definitely not, is he?
No, still cowboy-y though.
Oh, he's still. Here we go. We got Flappers says that he's
still does it now and again.
Still does it now and again.
Does he?
Yeah, yeah. Industrial machinery, mate. You're talking to a chief engineer. My hearing's knackered from engines and motors and shit.
I grew up in airports, so jet engines, and
I hung up with teenagers playing music badly in small rooms. Yeah,
I did a lot of that too.
Like one of my when I was a teacher, I decided to do a project where we took Smashing Pumpkins' "Melancholy Infinite Sadness" and gave each group a different song off that album. And long story short, it completely ruined the album for me.
I was going to say, you completely ruined some kids' lives, or
no. we then the next year, because my colleagues loved it as well. We tried the Weezer Blue album, and we tried to recreate not just the songs but the recording as well, like how the sound. And ruined that album for me as well. So at that point, I stopped doing it.
See, most people would have gone, now I'm going to use Taylor Swift.
There you go.
I mean, it was
anything that might have the opposite effect, though, man. What if you ended up liking Taylor Swift?
That's
afterwards?
We used to do a recording project with students, and no matter how bad a song it was, when you're recording it and then mixing it, it gets stuck in your head, and that's the worst thing. Is when you're like, I hate this song, but it's now just completely embedded in my brain.
Earworms.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question is any of us going to have a go at these OPAMPs? What's the plan? Who's going to do what? I'm going to call it now. Mike Rivers will be the first person to finish one.
Oh yeah, he always is. He'll have a video posted tomorrow, or he'll have he'll have had one that he had already been working on and said, "Oh yeah, I was working on that."
The guy's prolific.
If you Google my suggestion to people, if they're still not 100% sure, as I said, use this Tube Screamer one. Is quite good because it's quite a clear comparison. Have a look at the Boss Blues Driver schematic. It does seem daunting, but once you've got that kind of the 3 transistor, and you know what the op amp looks like, you can start to see the sections. Yeah, honestly, man, give it a go. It's
Justin Drawbridge, if you could do one with us, one of them heart shapes that you do out of your wiring in it, that would be fantastic.
It, as I said, it definitely favors lower gain stuff. So, like as you said, the micro amps are a great project for it.
That's what I'm going to use. That's a single, right?
Yeah. Have you ever tried the BBE Booster Grand?
I haven't, no, but I do remember them. The Booster Grande, yeah. I like the enclosure. It looks nice.
Well, they made a mini version. I'm guessing because of money. But yeah, I loved that big box version. But that's one of my favorite boost circuits, and that's essentially a micro amp with some tone shaping, and that's well worth a look as well to have a play around with.
Yeah, I might look at that. If it's a single, it's when you start getting into the dual, and I have to think about, I don't know, more than 3 transistors. Yeah, there's no way I'm.
Well, that's it. As I said, with things like the Horse Whisperer, I'd love to build more of these. Honestly, I would love to like make that a proper production pedal. But it's
you really should.
2, 4, 6, 8,
9, 8. I think.
9 transistors in total. No, it's more. So in total, it's 11. It's 9 J201s.
There you go.
Yeah, and that's it. So it's 11 transistors. And there's an IC in there as well because it's an 18-volt charge pump in there as well. So it's a massive circuit. It's a pain in the ass. And sourcing. So even now, like the backlog cleared up, and suddenly you could buy the SMD versions again. But every now and then you go, like you start to run out, so you go on Farnell or RS or wherever, and suddenly they're out of stock again. And it's like the lead time's months. It's just people are still playing catch up after 4 years of them being kind of out of stock. Yeah, I'm still just. This is, as I said, the problem is there's like a whole stack of pedals next to me, and I'm just trying to think what is what.
So I've just been thinking. I built a clone from a kit recently. I'm gonna have to put that up next to my Horse Whisperer and see what's what.
It will sound totally different. Yeah, no.
100%.
Yeah, because the Horse Whisperer one was essentially a DOD 250 with the clone tone control. That was it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I built 2 clones exactly the same from the same kit and used vintage components in one, and then the components in the other, and they sounded completely different. And I mean wildly different. So
that oscillation weird thing that happened when you lifted the diode clipping too, that was crazy.
That was insane. I don't even know what happened there.
Suddenly, it's because there's suddenly more volume. I modified a soul food for someone, and that was the first thing I did was snip the diodes out, and it goes crazy. And it's because all of a sudden there's so much volume that it's not set up to compensate for it.
Yeah,
it needs to be compressed. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Behringer. Yeah, as I said earlier, I pre-ordered loads of things. Well, Late Night Simon pre-ordered loads of things, and one of them was the Behringer clone. In fact, the Behringer clone, the Vibe, and the Tone Bender. Yeah, so I haven't ordered the bass, the Brassmaster. I've not ordered, mostly because of money. But the other 3 are on order, and they should.
Well, I'm going to mod them.
Yeah,
that's my plan. I ordered the fuzz on the Centura I thought I'll mod them, see what's what. I know they're going to be like SMD and a pain in the arse, but there'll be loads of space in the enclosure, especially for the fuzz. I'll be able to put a whole nother fuzz in there.
I'd hope so, but again, it's hard to gauge how. When you see the videos and stuff, it's hard to gauge how big things are going to be in real life.
Yeah.
So it might be because again, the clone, it looks right, but it's also, I keep saying it's the uncanny valley of the clones because it's slightly.
I think it looks tight. It looks like there's 3 different size boxes. There's the normal clone box, then there's the size that I use for some of my boosts and stuff, and they're sort of like bigger than a normal enclosure but smaller than a clone, and then there's the tiny ones. So it looks like a tiny one to me.
It'll be interesting. Well, I was chatting to a few people about this with it's funny, Behringer jumping into the game now, and the best thing was it coming so soon off the heels of JHS saying it doesn't make much money off pedals or per pedal, and then all of a sudden Behringer drop a clone for 60 quid, then a Vibe for 60 quid, then a fuzz for 60 quid. And you're like, wait, you're complaining about mass producing and struggling to make money, and then Behringer are just here throwing stuff out.
Yeah, but they're from
well, you
like
know,
another country where
Behringer-
they don't pay
No, that's it.
Behringer,
proper
yeah,
labor.
Yeah.
Behringer owns like the manufacturing facility for
Yeah.
everything from start
That
to
was it.
finish.
That was it. I was chatting to a few people about this because they were saying, "Oh, it's going to impact small builders and stuff a lot."
And like Flapper
yeah,
says, they're only interested in the profit margin, the bottom
Oh,
line.
yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, very much.
Well, what I want to know is, are they going to do the fuzz enclosure? Is it plastic
I don't know.
or is it actually metal? Because I'm expecting plastic.
I'm expecting,
depends on-
yeah. I'd
It probably
expect
depends
plastic,
on
but
what price point they're going for.
well, have you?
It's like
Have either
40 quid, is it? So they have 50 quid?
50? Yeah, 50 60.
That's probably going to be metal.
Well, I was going to say,
it's
if
only
you,
like they're 20 quid pedals or the plastic enclosures
Yeah, but
usually, right?
it costs that much. It costs 50, 60 quid more for the metal enclosure on its own.
really? Again, not. But as John points out,
Yeah.
they're making it all. They own the factories.
They own the
Like,
factories.
they can
They
knock up.
make their own enclosures like nobody.
Yeah, they make their own pots, make their own like the faders for stuff. They make themselves.
Yeah.
They they
Flapper says plastic and still needs to shield it.
yeah.
There you go.
But have any of you tried the Fox gear pedals?
No,
Mm-mm.
I like
probably
the
knew this.
weirdness of their enclosures. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
So,
like
but that's it.
sorry.
So they're it looks like you think it's plastic, and then with like the top plate that glows up. But it's not. It is aluminium, and it's weird. Like it's aluminium filings. It's essentially aluminium MDF, where they've taken filings and repurposed it.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it is metal, but
Powdered metal
really-
inside of a resin compound is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to work
Yeah.
at a factory where we cast statuary out of a similar thing, where we would take an acrylic resin compound that needed to be catalyzed and mixed it with metal powders, either bronze or copper, or depending on
Wow.
what the customer wanted. And it could be sold as a bronze statuary, but it was cold cast instead of hot cast.
It
So,
sounds a lot like
similar.
the mason metal we use for like quick pipe repairs. If if you're stuck, you just mix up this liquid metal, for want of a better word, and then
No,
just slap it on.
Hubcap John said it's called cold casting. Pretty much the same thing.
Well, there's a man who makes some cool enclosures. I mean, I know I say it all the time, but fiberglass fuzz face enclosures, they were amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that fuzz face is another one which I think we've been speculating what else Behringer will make, because given the vibe manual, it looks like they're going to release a wah and an Octavia as well.
Yeah, they should do the super fuzz. That's a cool enclosure.
My thinking, or my guesses were that Marshall Super Fuzz, probably a fuzz face in a proper round enclosure.
They might get are they going to call it a fuzz face? Or do you
Probably because like the tone bender they've literally called. Haven't they just called it tone bender?
Yeah, I mean,
or fuzz bender. Sorry. Yeah.
Would they get the would they have to do the Dunlop workaround then? Because Dunlop still owns the fuzz face trademark.
They're just call it fuzzy face. They don't care.
They'll just put a tack in between the fuzz and the face, won't they, or something?
I mean, they have to change it 30% by law is all. So
yeah,
they're also not exactly following the law.
They'll put 3 Z's in fuzz and then 2 Y's, so fuzzy face, and maybe a couple of Z's on face as well. I don't know what. Again, I do know why. But Late Night Simon has become obsessed with AliExpress counterfeits. So not just like the cheap clones, but actual counterfeit. Yeah, and it's counterfeits of pedals I already own the original of. So it's not like I'm just being a cheapskate going, oh, I'll try that. I've become obsessed with the KTR clone with the writing's wrong. It's make people feel sick. And I've wanted one for a couple of years now, and I can't explain why. But there's something about it.
Would it get stopped in customs? Do you think it gets stopped in customs?
I don't know. That probably
depends on how. It depends on how like savvy they are.
Yeah, I mean, the King of Tone ones where it literally says Analog Man might do. And again, so there's some Cornerstone Gladio clones which literally say Cornerstone on it. In fact, my favorite thing was I saw someone sell a used one on eBay, and it sold for £200-300 because they'd listed it as Cornerstone Gladio, even though all the paperwork and stuff clearly said this is a counterfeit, like made by Lear or whoever. Yeah, but it still sold. Like people were like, "Oh, cool, this is just a cheap Gladio," and paid Gladio prices for it.
See, I don't like that because Gladio were like kind of a smaller brand. I don't like that they're getting cloned. That's
I mean, again, so this is an argument, and the hot toddy is a great example of this. Of when do you call a circuit an original design? Because like
when you plaster their name on it and use their aesthetics,
It's
that's
where
where
I draw the line.
But no.
Yeah.
So the cornerstone, the cornerstone Gladio is a Timmy. It's a Timmy with a clean blend. That's it. And
I'm not on about the circuit. I'm on
he's
about
not. He's talking.
Oh yeah,
about
sorry, just the trade dress. Oh yeah.
I mean,
If
people didn't copy, we wouldn't have like the Marshall Plexi. So I'm good with that.
There is no original circuit out there, really.
Yeah.
Anybody,
you're right.
like,
anybody
when it's counterfeit with the trade dress. Yeah.
I will find one and prove you wrong.
Yeah.
Albus Band says, "What have I stumbled into, mate? You've stumbled into just a chat now." I love it.
It got hot.
Yeah.
But what I mean is them copying the exact aesthetic, so it confuses people.
Well,
that's a totally different story.
Copy the circuit all day long.
Demon Effects are a weird one for that, because I've seen a few where so they do the duelist clone, which they call the dual gun, and someone posted about it in a group, and a couple of people were just like, a couple of people are saying, myself included, like it's so close, it looks close enough to the original that if you caught it at a glance, you would think it was the original.
Which is,
but then there's a few people defending it, going, "No, you wouldn't. It clearly says dual gun, Lear Rock. It's definitely Demon Effects. If you look at it, it's not the same." You're like, it's close enough. From a glance,
they're copying them.
Yeah.
You can't say they're not.
It creates the seed in the mind. It plants the seed that and it's classic manipulation technique and marketing technique 101.
Yeah.
And
well, as far as the circuit goes, I'm quite happy. I mean, how many builders have built a fuzz face? Everyone. So no one can say that they're against copying. In fact, I'll make videos of all of my pedals and show you how to build them.
Yeah,
this won't be built by me if you build it.
Yeah, I'm the same. I talk about this all the time. That like the hot toddy, I always say is a discrete up and Timmy. Like the Tube Screamer I showed earlier, if you looked at that and said, "What circuit is this?" no one would say Tube Screamer, because on paper it's so different. But you yourself know what you've built. You know where you started, what you did with it, and that's kind of what I meant about originality with pedals. Is like, at what point do you call it original? Because to me, my hot toddy isn't original. I know what it is, but on paper, when you see it, you're like, "Oh, that it's not Timmy. It's not the Blues Driver. It looks like its own thing." And it's weird.
Well, see, the thing is,
copy it exactly and do. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Anything that you've copied is a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, exactly.
Of a copy. It's like So there's nothing original. Like
all three of us could sit in a room and build on the same PCB each, out of our own components and our own choice, the same tube screen with the same values. Just I would use my massive capacitors. You would use some vintage things from your dad. You would use something else, and they would all sound completely different. So I don't see it as being a clone in that way. But when you color it silver and use the same knobs and the same layout and the same font,
and
that's where I
same
draw the line.
It's like the lawsuit guitars of the 70s, where you would have the same shape headstock, and it would be a Gilson instead of a Gibson, or it'd be I mean, you would see it just like the font the same and just one letter changed.
Oh, Greco,
exactly. Same Gibson font, looks exactly like. I mean, from a distance, it looks like the guy's playing a Gibson on stage. They were Gibson killers too. I had a
signature in it. John Sykes, didn't he do a signature Greco?
There were a few people that did signature Grecos, I thought. Yeah. I know that a lot of guitar players in the 70s went to Japan because the US stuff sucked so bad.
And the Japanese stuff is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
by the 80s, they had it down.
Yeah. Well, I was chatting to someone about the Epiphone, the Korean factory Epiphones from the late 90s, early 2000s. And again, and stuff that was then aimed at the Japanese budget market. And so they were putting them, it was the Samick factory, and they were putting them out. And they are so different. So I've got a 2002 Carina SG. I used to own. Oh, I love it so much. I used to own one. I sold it. It's the only guitar I regret selling. And then years ago, before I rebought it, a friend lent me his, and it was the same factory, but it wasn't the Carina one. It was just the normal one, and it was just phenomenal. Because I'd played some in shops at the Carina, not Carina, sorry, just Epiphone SGs, and Yeah, there seems to be a sweet spot, like mid 90s to early 2000s, and the outside. It's once they stopped having Gibson on the truss rod cover, all of a sudden it just changes totally. And it's when they were building stuff for the Japanese market, it had to be high end, even if it's budget. It has to be high end.
I really want to go back to Japan. What a country! My 5-year-old wants to go, and I'm like, brilliant.
There you go. That's all the excuse you need.
Excuse.
Did either of you pick up the Hello Kitty fuzz?
No, but I do want to.
I'd love to get one.
I do want to have a go at that. Yeah, they sound good to me.
I bought late night Simon bought one, and it's fun. It's not a great. It's one of those pedals where
what's the stick?
It's the Fender Hammertone Octave Fuzz, which I think was a Fox Tone, possibly. No, because it's OPAMP based.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, either way, it's the Fender Hammertone Fuzz, and they've taken the octave circuit out of it.
Okay.
But it sounds cool, but you also know that's it. It's that novelty aspect that makes it feel cooler than it is. Yeah, if it was just the Hammertone, if that was just the Hammertone version, no one would care.
Speaking of bright pink pedals, I am literally on the verge of buying a pussy melter. I want that pedal so bad.
Same.
And it's the most ridiculous thing ever. But if they hadn't have said stop building them and everyone jump on the bandwagon, I wouldn't want one. But I really want one.
So
just another place.
That's the problem. I keep those every time I watch them. They're starting at 400 quid, and I always tell myself if they go below 300, just grab it. But by the second it goes under 300, someone else does. Like someone beats you to the punch every time.
Yeah,
because I don't know how many. I don't know how many they built.
Like a year
if that, because it was very the campaign against them was so quick, which was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It was hilarious.
Well, I love it. I mean, their other pedals more offensive. What is it? What's the other one?
Butthole burn. Butthole burn.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. What was the Poontang one? Was that the delay?
I don't know. I don't know, mate. But I just think it's so much fun. It's tongue in cheek, so take it as what it is. But I want one bad, just because I think it looked cool on my pedalboard, you know.
When I was doing the Nightingale drive, when I first started, it was this blue with this was my original kind of scheme for it. This kind of this blue with these black knobs.
Come on, Warren. Warren's got a pussy melter. Of course he has. He's got the best pedal collection in the world.
I was going to say, he's got a pussy melter and the guitar pedal too, right?
I started making these. This was my plan to do for the color scheme. And then someone ordered one, and we were chatting, and he was like, I'm like yourself, Joe, where people ask for a particular color or thin color. You go, yeah, whatever. And he was saying, I'm not a big fan of that blue. Is there any other colors? And my partner had just been to there's this weird shop near us, which is kind of like it's like a budget version of Home Bargains, which sounds obscene, but it is. That's what it is. And their collection of paint includes hot neon pink. So she bought me a can because I was like, that looks cool. And he said jokingly, I'd love it pink with white knobs. And I went, I have some hot neon pink. And he went, really? And I kind of sprayed it and then showed him next to some knobs as well. And so I built it for him. And I built two at the same time, one for him and one for this guy in Germany, who'd asked for the blue. And I sent them the wrong ones. So the guy in Germany got the pink one and this guy got the blue one. And I was like, I'm so sorry. So I obviously fixed it. But the guy in Germany, I messaged, once I realized my mistake, I'm like, right, it's pink. I'm so sorry. If you want to send it back, we'll refund, whatever. And he's like, oh no. And then when he got it, it was like, it just looks great. And I went, it's not right though. And long story, exceptionally long story, very, very short. I've now sold more hot pink versions of the Nightingale drive than I have any other color.
That's the one the one that shows up on the Budget Pedal Chaps thumbnail.
Yeah, Budget Pedal Chaps, Jackson Brooksby, all these people. It wasn't me making it. I asked them, I was like, what aesthetic do you want? And I gave them loads of pictures of different colors and things, and everyone just goes, yep, I want it bright pink, these kind of cream knobs. Thanks very much. And it annoys me. It doesn't annoy me, but it irks me because I see that color and think, oh, that's going to be like a high gain 80s, like rad distortion kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like super low gain, really transparent, like dynamic blues breaker kind of thing. It feels wildly out of place.
Oh, mate, I've got so much time for it. I'm sat here now looking at a can of Leon's spray paint thinking, my next couple of pedals are going to be bright.
Yeah. Honestly, there's something quite joyous about it. Because after the bright pink, she also, my partner bought me the neon green.
I love the neon green.
Yeah,
I think we're talking about the same cans. They're like a smaller spray can. It says neon on the front with a.
No, they're quite big cans. This
Oh, are they? Oh, I was going to say I've got a load of them. They used to sell them in Poundland by me.
Yeah, it's that.
Those are they're safety.
Yeah, it's the same.
Safety marking.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got tons of it. Yeah, and it glows in the dark under black light. I mean, it's crazy.
Nice.
Sounds good to me.
It lights up. That's probably why people like it. Like, man, you can talk about it showing up on your pedal board in a stage.
Yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it? It's weirdly unique. So you see that pedal on a board and it stands out. Yeah, like Joe was saying this a while ago when I did the silver with black for your choose.
Oh, I really like that.
That's it. But you're right. 2017 Simon would have hated it. I was quite happy with gunmetal, just some diamond labels. I'm still very much kind of function over form. But then I get it. When you see pedal boards and you want things that artistically express, not just tonally, artistically express things to you. And yeah, things that stand out are things that, like when Hugcut John did the Japanese wave thing.
Oh yeah,
that was amazing.
Awesome, absolutely incredible. And again, if you saw that on a board, you didn't see no, it's boutique, and two, you'd want to know more about that pedal.
Yeah,
which I think is wonderful.
You could say that about all of John's designs, though, couldn't you? Let's face it.
Yeah,
he's just got like this real. You could say, "Oh, I'm thinking about this design," and he'll have it done better than you could have imagined it in the first place.
Yeah,
he's very, very artistic.
Well, I asked him very briefly. Sorry.
No, great.
So I make a pedal called the Porter 4, which I've probably talked about before, which is the sound of those old Tascam Porter Studio tape recorders. But it's the sound of it once you've recorded. It's not just the preamp. It's like you record your guitar and then play it back. It's that sound where it's kind of like, it's not like quarter-inch tape. It's cassette, so it's kind of phasey and fizzy and it's kind of weird. So I built a pedal for that, and I love how it sounds, but I know, and it's on Reverb, I know it would sell more if it looked like the Porter 4. I know it's going to be... So yeah, long story short, I asked John to knock something up for me, and he did, and then I got hit with a bout of depression and just never followed it up. So but hopefully, yeah, I'd love to do that and get it done properly. I'm mad at myself. I tried to do a stereo version, and I mean, it's a lesson learned, really. There was a massive influx of people asking for the stereo version. Overwhelming, really. So I built the first two and I sent them out, and I was quite happy with them. I was quite excited. It was a bit of a challenge because there was like, the circuit uses LDRs, so I was trying to sync that for stereo is tough, but got there. I thought I got there. And then both of them, they got the pedals and they're like, I'm not being rude, but it's so noisy. And I'm like, is it noisy? Is it me? Is the original circuit noisy? Have I just wired it badly? And I sat down with the original and it's stupidly noisy. And I'd not thought about it because I play a Strat, which is noisy. My test rig's noisy. So I just assume if something's a bit noisy when I play it, I kind of think, oh, that's just the guitar in my setup. And then when I looked at the schematic, you can kind of think to yourself, there's one spot in the entire circuit where you're cutting some treble. Everything else is wide open. Of course, it's noisy and harsh. And so I stopped I've not done any more stereo ones, and I want to, but I need to really figure that out. And I've managed to fix so on the mono ones now, it's fixed and it's fine, and it sounds great. But I know that I need to do a proper push and get the proper artwork. And again, it's also conceptually like, when you explain it to people, you either get it or you don't. It's like the JHS color box. I was talking to someone about that the other day, and it's a great pedal if you know what you're doing with it.
On a serious note from that, I'd love to build one. It's a copy of a circuit, isn't it?
It's gonna have
It's
to be,
super
it's gonna have to be a pink box that's like
Yeah.
literally melted. Like take.
I'm going to call it that, mate. The pink box.
the
It's
pink
really
box.
simple circuit. It's a MOSFET buffer, a MOSFET. Is it the CA 3010 or something? It's like a MOSFET loaded OPAMP. So MOSFET buffer, MOSFET OPAMP with soft clipping LEDs into a super hard on. That's it. That's the whole circuit.
Oh, right, okay.
The booty control is the gain for the super hard on. Yeah, I think FuzzDog has got the PC, probably pedal PCB as well. But yeah, the PCB is readily, the schematic's readily available for it.
I feel like I need to build one though.
I keep thinking about it, and then again I get distracted. That's the other problem.
And then I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to package it in one of my pedals and pretend I've invented a new pedal.
I was chatting to someone the other day about spite building. That not all the things I build are out of spite, but there are definitely things I see that annoy me, and then I then build. So the Porta 4 is one of those pedals that was a spite build. A company made a pedal claiming that it was the sound and feel of an Akai 2-track tape machine. And you listen to the demos, and it's all right. But then I googled it, so I was looking at the schematics for it and thinking there's a lot here, but I appreciate it's more about the sound. It's like when people say an Electra sounds like a Tweed amp kind of thing. It's that. And then they shared a picture of the gut shot, and it was literally a super hard on with hard clipping diodes. That was the whole circuit. That was the whole circuit, and it really upset me. And I was like, "You've not even tried." So when I started doing the Porta 4, that was out of spite to be like, if you're gonna do it, lean into it, like properly commit to it.
I like that.
And it took the frustration with mine was it took ages because I thought I had it, but it wasn't getting that gritty, like that weird grittiness. Like as I said, when you get proper tape, you get flange and that kind of thing. You don't get that with cassette. It's like phase distortion, like crossover distortion, or something. And in the end, I had to add. It's not a vibe circuit, but it's kind of a vibe circuit, but it's a vibe circuit with a candle LED. So the candle LED is obviously not totally random, but relatively random. Yeah. So you're getting kind of random phase cancelling.
Which is exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. And can still be done all that. The problem is it does mean I can't sell them to Europe. And the same with the compressors. The same, I can't sell the compressor to Europe.
But don't feel bad because now you can't sell anything.
Exactly. It's that's the positive side. The positive side of GPRS that I can.
GSRP, whatever.
I said it before and I'll say it again. If you want a vintage pedal from the UK to Europe, I'm the only builder still selling to Europe.
Antique. You have to say antique pedal.
Oh, sorry, antique.
Pedal.
It will on a customs form.
Antique. it'll say it where it needs to.
Part of it was also you had to have all your stuff in 4 languages. So it had to be like English, French, German, Spanish. All the warnings and stuff.
English, Scouse, American, Australian. That's what I got.
Just g'day.
Kiwi.
Yeah.
Kiwi.
Well, one's going to start with throwing another shrimp on a barbie. Well, that's not a knife. Another one's going to be like, I don't know, something about the stars and stripes and just put a flag in there somewhere.
Stick a flag in it. Stick a flag in it. It's done.
Yeah. Just liberty.
I don't even need to because I'm selling vintage anyway.
Antique pedals. Yeah.
I'll just put one antique capacitor in there. That makes it.
It's really frustrating. I've got a couple of builds on the go. Well, they won't be done till after Christmas now in awesome, like cool boxes, and I can't show you either of them because I know we've not finished them yet. But it feels very weird doing the kind of Hello Sailor style, like mass. Like these enclosures are like
I love it.
Huge. And the guy asked, "Wait, could you get the biggest components you could find for it?" So Late Night Simon went to Bulgaria for online to buy these.
Truly great place to buy components. All the Soviet stuff's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've got they're kind of the size of candles, like the 100 NF caps.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be
I'm
something.
looking for a set. If anyone on here knows anyone who's got the old capacitors from the filter caps from a Fender amp, so you know the cardboard ones. I want some of them that are completely knackered, so then I can take the casings off them and enclose my new caps in them to make my amp. New caps
You mean
will have the old look. Yeah,
which
you know
which
the
are you
Mallory,
looking for?
you
Yeah,
know
but
the
which
Mallory
era?
caps.
Which era? Because I've got all
60,
I've got all
well,
the eras.
around about 60s. I'd be happy with 64, but 60s. I'm going to fill them with resin and put new caps
I've got
inside them.
I might have new old stock original replacements. Are you talking about the can caps? Like what are the values?
No, I'm talking about the, if you took the doghouse off an old Fender amp and then you've got the two of them, I don't know, 70 UF at 350 volts, and then three of them at 20 UF at 450 or 500 volts.
Yeah.
Really,
I've got all those, the cans and everything. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
I'll find a picture. It's literally
show me some pictures.
You know what?
I've got ones that you could hollow out and put everything in, and it would
it's like a cardboard tube. That really shouldn't be a cap. It's hilarious. But I've changed so many of them. I never thought to keep them, and now I'm like, my 64 needs to say looking original. Someone's orange dropped it throughout, and I was like, because it's from a studio. But now I've got all the original blue molded caps. So
that
I'm
used to not matter.
Change it back.
All that used to not matter. See, the vintage. I blame George Gruen. George Gruen did more to like get good gear out of the hands of real musicians than any other individual on the face of the planet. He's the guy from Vintage Guitar Magazine that started telling Wall Street millionaires and billionaires to invest in vintage guitars and vintage amps.
Yeah.
And he created this market that is artificially inflated, and why people go gaga over unobtainium things.
My thing isn't on unobtainium and anything like that. I just want it when I open it up and look inside it of an evening, not playing guitar and stare at it. I want it to look original. Well, you know what I mean. So I'm happy with them being new caps, but they got to look the same.
But they got to look the same.
Someone's orange dropped the whole thing, so all the coupling caps I'm going to change back. In fact, that's a lie. The last two that feed the output valves tubes, I'm going to use Sozo blue molded for them, just because they're under a lot of stress in this amp. It's like 100 watt or whatever. So I'm not going to put vintage ones in there, but everything else I'm going to try and change back, and I'll record sound before and afterwards, and everyone can tell me it sounds worse afterwards. I don't care.
It just sounds the same.
Exactly the same. I don't care. When I'm looking inside it with the high voltage in my hands, dangerously, and it looks the same, I'll be happy.
Well, I mean, Mallory, the can cap manufacturer, I know that they were bought by CE Distribution, and they're making modern versions that look exactly the same, don't they?
I'm not on about the multi caps. I'm on about the just electrolytic caps. Cardboard,
the plain cardboard filter caps.
Yeah.
Tell me which ones you've got, because I've got a bunch of those too. Like I've got Mallory's. I've got some that are in the red cardboard. I've got some that are in the brown cardboard. They made some in
the
green.
brown cardboard. Okay. The brown.
Yeah, because depending. That's why I said which era, because they'll come in several different cardboard colors that they used.
Oh, is it? Yeah. I've already seen the brown.
You'll see brown, red, green. I've seen black cardboard, and then they switched to the metal cans after a while. So
definitely. Well, I'm going to use mod caps in it, because I know everyone likes F&T, but the mod caps are pretty bloody good. And they're cheap. So I'm going to use them, but I'm going to resin fill the old sleeves. So then they're the same. And I've got the blue molded to go in there.
And that's the cool thing about the mod caps is they're investing the money only in the tone and not in the marketing.
And they're small. They're smaller than the rest of them, because even like Sprague, they like inflate the size of their cap to make it look good.
To make it look
good.
And
then that makes it harder to fit in the old tube and make it look original. I don't care about so I'm going to do a video about it anyway, but this thing's become my little, like, I come out here and just stare at it. My wife will be like, Joe, what are you doing? I'm just smelling my amp. Breathe in the tone.
Yeah, we put Marcus Reeves to sleep. Apparently, he's like, "Geez, you still do go?" He's like, still going. He's been asleep with the cats for 2 hours.
Love it, mate. Yeah, we were talking tone. Basically, Simon's on, so we're getting everything we can out of him.
Yes. I've
We
got to go
definitely
back
need to make this a regular thing.
Yeah, I'm still looking around
and bookmark areas where I need to go back and reference now.
Oh yeah.
I'm now looking around just seeing what else I've got. I built the Tube Screamer after, so I built you guys Tube Screamers, and I built one for myself when I realised the one I built for Joe, whilst I was testing it, I was like, this might be the best Tube Screamer I've ever made in this one setting.
I think it really is.
And then built one for myself.
Everything on full and the gain round about 9 o'clock is like heaven for me.
Yeah, I've gone for level full, tone about 1-2 o'clock, and then gain probably about 9-10 o'clock, just for kind of that lift.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I'm also in a weird. Yeah, I've talked about it before. I made, the original muff fuzz, the one that plugged in straight into your guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which was like a weird fuzz face, like not
looked like one of the Vox things. The Vox,
those Voxes. So when I first started building pedals, one of the first pedals I built was that muff fuzz, because I remember seeing the schematic. No, sorry, seeing the Vero layout, and it's tiny, and I was like, oh, I've got all those parts in stock. Let's give it a build. So I dug out my fake 50 88s, and my fake Germanium diodes, and built it and loved it with a buffer in front of it, because without it, it's like the proper like blown out fuzz, which is meant to be. With a buffer in front, it becomes quite a nice distortion. And over the years, again, it was one that I went back to and back to and back to, and I now make a 6-knob version, and it's one of those. I don't know if either of you. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm crazy. I assume that everyone that builds pedals has pedals that they've built themselves that they love, and they're their secret pedals. They're like, this is my tone secret that I want to share, but also I don't want to share, and I want anyone else to know about this. And this is mine. It's a 6-knob. As I said, the muff fuzz reworked to be 6 knobs. So the top 3 knobs is gain tone level, and then the bottom ones are bias, feedback, and sag. So if you have all the bottom row just turned off, it's like a normal kind of overdrive, and it's quite nice. But because it's all transistor, it's quite a unique tone to it. But then as you dial in the bottom ones, you then get into the fuzz and kind of blown out, already gated, and it's just incredibly versatile. And every time, it's one of the pedals that ends up on my shelf of forgotten pedals constantly. It's currently covered in. I don't know how well this will come across. This is what happens when aluminium starts to corrode. Our old house, in fact, so our old house was so damp that loads of things corroded. I bought a Universal Audio Starlight at the time, brand new, and that's corroded. That's how damp our old house was. I was digging out microphone. So to do this rather than use the Bluetooth, because I've got plenty of gear, I was like, it must be able to use my mixing desk, and figured it out, and it works, as you can hear. But when the first couple of mics I dug out, I went, oh, they look corroded, and then plugged them in, and sure enough, they're kind of noisy and rattly, and it's like, the discs have got corrosion on them, so they need cleaning and stuff. This was the one that didn't, but it also anyway. So this, I come back to this constantly, and I love it. And the problem I have 2 problems. One, I can't think of a name for it. Two, I can't think of how to pitch it, because it's a fuzz that does overdrive, but it's also an overdrive that does fuzz, and it's kind of both of those things, but neither of those things. And it's wonderfully versatile, but also very uniquely voiced. And every kind of 3 or 4 months, I pick it up, play it, fall in love with it all over again. I feel like I should do something with it, and then kind of do that Smeagol kind of my precious kind of thing, and don't want to get rid of it.
What you should do is approach an artist that you think it'd suit. Someone, I don't know, someone not so massive that they'll want to take it on, and let them come up with a name and stuff, and then it'll probably take off. Well,
this is what's weird. So that might, if it happens, it'll be cool, but it goes in the wrong direction. So it's basically, I built the big pacemaker thing I built, where I built a fuzz into the old pacemaker calibration machine.
The heart attack.
So that was a 2-knob version of this. And then when I built that, Let's Play with Guitar bought it. And when we were chatting, I was like, it'd be cool to make a normal size version of it as well. So I did. So that's a 2-knob version in a small enclosure, and he loves it. and he keeps calling it the Heartbreaker because it does the Led Zepp Heartbreaker solo kind of fuzz.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. There you go.
Well, that's it, and this is the problem, that's cool and it does that great, but when it's 6 knobs, it does so much more. And I think part of me is just like, okay, maybe just do 2 knobs and that's kind of lean into it. But
that's a thing that I've struggled with, because I'm like you. I want to have a pedal for myself that has all the controls. I want multiple switches, multiple knobs, all the parameters. But then the user out there, they're intimidated by all the knobs. They don't know like what configurations they're going to like. If you give them 2 knobs and 1 switch and they can get the sound that they heard, then they're happy.
Yeah.
If you replace they by Joe, then yeah, I agree. Yeah. 2 knobs, 1. That's me.
Yeah,
because I haven't got a very good ear. I don't want to be twiddling about. I end up not playing guitar and start twiddling.
And that's the other danger, isn't it? Especially because that's the other thing. Naming so on my version, it's named like bias, feedback, and sag. And now we would all picture that on the circuit, know exactly what each controller's doing. But to someone that didn't know what the circuit was and they just play guitar, they would have to try and listen to it and figure it out. So I made a version where I changed the names to bite, I think bite, fullness, and softness. But again, I hate myself for that because whilst it's completely accurate, tonally accurate, it's not quite right. So
it's all dependent on like your interpretations, really. Yeah.
So, but that's So every now and then, after you were talking about it, because you're right, if you put labels on things, people have a kind of preset in there where it should go.
Unconscious bias, isn't it?
But when you've got 6 knobs and you don't label them, someone's going to go, "No, I give up." No. Like before you even start.
But then they're the wrong person for that pedal, so sell them the 2 knob one. I don't know. I just don't like the labels. I'm never going to build anything with labels ever.
Yeah, that's fair. As I say, it's when it gets above, I think 4 knobs is like the max you can go without labels, and then above that you start to get into territory of if you had to change something quickly on stage, and you wanted to grab something. Because it's also in the same way if you've got
if you're on stage, you don't want to grab the wrong knobs.
Yeah.
Well,
security might have something to say about that.
I knew that's where you were going with that one.
You can thank the chat for that.
To be fair,
I'm seeing the knob jokes starting in the chat. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Years ago, when I was a functional member of society, I played drums in a band called Japanese Government Railways, which is a great name, and I won't hear anything else about it. But yeah,
Japanese Government Railways.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
I've just read a book about that. Funny enough.
About, to be fair, the singer who named the band, it was because he had a poster on his wall that was the Japanese Government Railways poster with like a train and stuff, and he went, "Yeah, that will do." But yeah, we were playing
a bridge across the River Kwai. I went thinking about the actual road. Sorry, go on.
But yeah, we were playing this gig in Newark, and it was weird. So we were playing with another band. And it was the singer in that band's birthday, but it was also the singer in our band's birthday. And so it was kind of like part birthday party, part just gig. And it was this weird upstairs room in a pub, and it was rammed. It was a great gig. But obviously when you're the drummer and you're at that, even though you're on a raised stage, you're at a, you're not super high up, but you are at that kind of height where you can see through and kind of very clearly make out people in an audience. And a guy got his cock out and just waved it around a bit and then put it back in. And I saw it and I was like, but you're mid playing, so you're like, I can't do anything about it. And so I didn't say or do anything. And then he made eye contact with me and did it again. But that time the bassist saw as well. And the bassist just turned to me and he was just like that look of like, what the hell is going on? This is not right. So yeah, that was a hell of a gig.
And they went in the Navy, were they? Because we call that the helicopter.
To be fair, he was helicopter. Yeah, it was the helicopter.
Yeah.
He was very pleased with himself. Us less so.
I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest, mate. I haven't got the cock for it. There's not much helicopter going on there. Like
much less the bollocks.
It's a bold, it's a bold move to be at the front of a crowd, make eye contact with a band member, just like, hey! But yeah, had a lovely evening.
Fair play to him.
Yeah,
sounds like a rugby club night out.
And now we've got the name of your pedal, the helicopter.
There you go.
It's like
The helipad. The helipad.
You could just name it the controls things like foreskin, balls,
Shaft.
one of my pedal gurus is a guy called Ferret, which is again a great name.
And there's another control name, Ferret.
And he makes stuff like that, and he names things like that. So this is one of the pedals. When he started making pedals, years ago. But anyway, he decided to try and make a run of like production pedals, and he made these. This is the Fuzz Fox. It really is. I love everything about it. But his big thing is always he comes up with the joke first and then goes, shit, how do I make that into a pedal? So he made one. I can't remember what it was actually called, but it was a tremolo, and the artwork was a penis ejaculating. But the ejaculating was like 4 or 5 LEDs as the rate of the tremolo. So and each one went like that. And he was like, it took me months. It took me like minutes to make a tremolo circuit, and then months to try to get
the effect.
To get the LEDs to go with the rate of it. And then he made one explosive diarrhea, which was just a brown pedal. What was the Volvo one where he used paper mache to make ladies' genitalia on top of it?
Who made the shit pedal? Was that one?
Who did make the shit? But it's just like a.
Do you remember? So Reeves Electro was asked. Was that the Flying Circus? I'm guessing
in Newark.
The band? Yeah. Oh, is that a venue
at the pub? I don't know what it was called. It was. I don't know Newark particularly well either. It was a pub downstairs, and upstairs was quite a big room, basically. Quite right. When I say big room, it was a very high ceiling as well. It might have been the Flying Circus. I also can't remember the band we played with because they were a Newark band. So if I can remember that would help. But I can't.
Huh.
Yes.
Cool.
So one day I will come up with names for pedals and sell pedals properly.
Well, I think we've got to the end of this episode, really. Thank you so much, everyone, for following along. This has been my favorite episode so far.
This is the record breaker for time. 2 hours and 45 minutes.
We absolutely need to do this more often, Simon, especially with you on it.
I'm always about them, so just give us a shout. I'm always happy to know about pedals and stuff.
Yeah,
you can have just like a weekly chat. Pretty much.
I've got a few people that I really want to get on. I mean, Goliath Effects has said he's wanting to come on soon. Dev Audio,
Sound
there's a few. Sound Lad next year.
Huntington Audio. They're wanting to look sometime in early 2025. And he wants to get some stuff together for us to try out before he comes on too, for like the designing, because he's making tools for our pedal builders to design with.
Nice.
I think that's pretty exciting. He's kind of just getting into it.
We really need to get this man on. Reeves Electro Marcus. That would be so cool because he just has like a completely different take on pedals to us, and it would be interesting to hear him and Simon talk tone. That would be I would happily be a bystander for that one.
Yeah, we've chatted quite a lot, but I've only met him once, and because obviously when I'm outside, I'm in a wheelchair. It's very difficult to have proper conversations.
Was that in Birmingham? Was it?
Yeah, at the guitar show in Birmingham.
Yeah, I'll be there again next year if anyone wants to come and say hello and plug some stuff in.
Nice.
I may even bring my 100-watt beast of a showman on for no other reason than I just can't leave home without him.
We went to the Nottingham Alternative Guitar Show very recently, and Jason Mabry was there.
Mate.
Oh yeah.
And do you know Charlie's Pedals?
I've spoken to him a few times, online. He's fantastic.
Yeah, that was it. It's that weird thing of meeting people in real life. And again, because I chatted to him online, it's hard to ask people their name once you chat to someone for so long. And because it was Charlie's Pedals, I had to assume his name was Charlie. And thankfully it was. But yeah, those just phenomenal fuzzes. And I forget he just bought
unbelievable.
He just bought a new amp that he had down as well. That was it a Friedman? I can't remember. But yeah, this incredible amp, all these wonderful pedals, just everything sounding phenomenal.
Reeves said that'll be
a foursome with knob jokes. Absolutely amazing. And no helicopters.
Or, I think
only Harriers.
Only helicopters.
No, only Harriers. Only Harriers.
Ah, yeah, fair one.
If you want,
I think we've
VTOL.
established. I can't do
maybe Ospreys.
Well, yeah, definitely we need to do that. Without a shadow of a doubt. Anyway, thank you everyone for following along, and we'll see you shortly.
Cheers, all.